Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. It's the WalterFootball.com After Dark show for December 25th, 2024. Merry Christmas to everyone watching this. So we're going to be doing the Week 17 NFL picks against the spread for the 2024 NFL season. Before we do the intros, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. I am wearing one of the shirts, as always, the Free Gruden shirt, which is I always love wearing this one because I was in Vegas one time and I got into a cab. I was wearing this shirt and there's like this hippie cab driver was like, free Gruden for what, man? Like he's like genuinely interested in like what that was. And so I told him what went down and like he was so mad about it. So yeah, you can get that shirt as well as some of the other ones. Our squirrel shirt. One of our squirrel shirts is back. The other one's gone. But then the part of me shirt is up, but it's missing the text. So I had to fix that. But yeah, you can get all the other shirts here on the WalterFootball.com merch store via the link. That would help us out a lot. You can go to Amazon, buy my books. Jerks of the College Years is the most recent one where I made fun of people at Penn State. I was there for 6 years. I met a lot of strange people out there. So as you can imagine by this cover. So you can get that. As well as the expose I wrote about the 2020 MVPs, how the 2020 MVP was stolen. Brett Favre tried to sabotage Aaron Rodgers during the 2020 MVP race. So you guys can read all about that. Also, please consider super chats, super stickers. It's the best way to support the show. Slew and John Sanders, you guys have been so awesome with your contributions. Also, more recently, or I guess less recently, Joe for show and K Meek and Eagle and Justice Cintron. You guys have been so helpful keeping the show going. It is the best way because YouTube ads pay nothing. So I can't say it enough how much I appreciate you guys helping us out here. All right, so we are joined by Evan Daniel. Evan, how's it going and how's your week 16?
I'm good, Walt. Thanks for having me again. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah as well.
Mm-hmm.
Get the two coincide this year. Week 16 was actually really good. Contest wise, in the circa, I had such a bad week 2 weeks ago that I decided let me go reverse and try to play for the fourth quarter booby prize. Try to go against my picks. So I went 3-2, but really it was a good 2-3. So I'm looking for the losers. Super contest 3-1-1. I pushed the Minnesota Seattle game. And the only other loser was Tampa, which I still don't know what happened in that game, but it was a pretty good week overall. Good games, really fun games. But again, another week where pretty much every single favorite came through, which, we've said we don't want to adjust. The books are not adjusting. We're not adjusting. And it's one of those seasons where you now just have to kind of go along with the flow. Favorites are covering at a crazy clip, the highest I've ever seen since I've been tracking these games, which is going back to 2007. And maybe that's just, I don't know if it's the trend now for the rest of this year. We'll see when we go back in the off season how books adjust going forwards. But it's week in, week out. It's hard to get on underdogs now, especially with these really bad teams.
Yeah, it's truly amazing how great favorites have been this year. I suspect it might have something to do with the lack of practice time these players have, but that's been since 2010, since the lockout. They practiced less, and I found that ever since the lockout, underdogs have not performed as well. And like generally, like when teams have extra time to prepare, that actually hasn't helped them either. Like I think like the bye week stats for the teams that aren't great has gotten a lot worse. I think the teams coming up buys this year have been pretty bad overall, except for the really good teams. So that's something I noticed a while ago, but it's definitely gotten worse this year, and I wonder if that's going to either continue next year and beyond, or if it's going to reverse. Obviously, I have no idea, but
It also speaks to the parity or lack of the parity. There's a clear top 8 or 9 teams in the league, and there's a clear bottom 8 or 9 teams, and these bottom teams just can't win. Whether it's quarterback, backup quarterback, horrendous coaching throughout some of those bottom feeder teams. But we've done this now week in, week out, taking teams like the Titans getting a few points, just you can't trust them. Now, I was on Green Bay last night as one of my contest picks and actually missed the beginning of the game. Not for a second did I even think about sweating out that game. Once it was 14-0, I had the spread because I just didn't think New Orleans would even score. I think my score in the game was like 34-6. It was 34-0. I mean, some of these games are not competitive. and laying 14 points. And I mean, in the olden days, I wouldn't have even thought to lay a 14-point spread, as I never wanted to lay more than 3 in a contest spread. Now it's like 14. Yeah, no problem. Green Bay at home in the cold, forget it.
Yeah.
So got to adjust.
Yeah, you really have to, and it's great call on your part. I didn't bet the game. I instantly regretted it. I'm like, why not bet the stupid Packers? Not stupid Packers. Why not fade the stupid Saints? I should say.
Right.
So yeah,
it's Rattler, it's Hayner in the cold weather at night. I think I was talking to my dad about the game. Like, if that game were at 1 p.m. on a Sunday, I probably don't lay the 14 points.
Yeah.
But since it's at night, prime time, there's no reason for Green Bay to let down in that spot. And we'll talk throughout tonight about some of the teams with motivational, rationale. All these teams, whether they're playing for seeding or not, unless the team got eliminated a week ago and there's like a demoralized feeling, I think that every team comes to play. I mean, you talk about Dallas. I mean, they came, and after the game, they said, we're playing for each other. CeeDee Lamb gets hurt in the game. A couple minutes later, he's back in the game. So give these guys credit. For the most part, throughout the league, even teams that are eliminated or teams who just got eliminated before their games even started last week came out and played hard, which is, I guess, what you want to see. But there are some really bad teams in the league. And it's hard to watch some of these football games. Like, if you don't have money on Green Bay last night, that's a horrible football game. Like, who wants to watch that?
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. So yeah, it was an easy win for Green Bay, and then it was an entertaining night, at least, because then after the game, I got into a fight on Twitter with Christian Watson's dad. That was interesting as well. So we got a lot of hate mail from that. It was pretty great. But yeah, no, you're right. Like, you have to really fade these terrible teams. And there are a couple teams that aren't trying. They've made it known that they want to lose on purpose with their quarterback switches. So we'll get to those as well. And Mike echoes Merry Christmas, and as you said, Happy Hanukkah, and happy. You can't forget Happy Festivus for the rest of us too.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Let's get to the first of 2 Christmas games. I never thought we'd have Christmas games on a Wednesday. I assured my wife that Sue says, of course, yeah, Christian Watson got hurt, of course. So I assured my wife, I'm like, oh, football games are on Wednesday, or Christmas games are on Wednesday this year, or Christmas is on Wednesday this year. There's not going to be any football games. I'll be able to spend time the entire day with the family. But this is the ultimate divorce package here. So we have Chiefs at the Steelers. This line is Chiefs minus 2.5. So the big news here, just look at the injury report. George Pickens is going to play. He does not have an injury designation. Practice fully both days. I'm not sure what sort of practice they've had, but so the fact is that he's going to be out there. So that automatically makes this very unappealing to me. I thought if Pickens was out, that the Chiefs looked pretty good, but Mike Tomlin as an underdog, especially coming off a loss, pretty substantial loss, is generally like a great spot, to bet the Steelers. But I don't really want to fade the Chiefs either, considering that they are playing for the number 1 seed. And whenever you have a good team playing for something, like they have some sort of goal, like winning the division or clinching the number 1 seed, they will generally play pretty tough. And I suspect them to be motivated in this game. So I'm still going to be on the Chiefs. I don't really want to take the Steelers here less than a field goal. If this is like 3.5, I would consider it. 2.5, there's not really much wiggle room for the Steelers here because I think the Chiefs will win. But yeah, I like Kansas City, but not really sure I'm going to bet this game. What do you think about this game?
When I looked at the lines in the games last night and kind of over the weekends, kind of planning ahead, the line was 3, and I was really struggling because I really didn't want to lay 3 with Kansas City. I don't really want to take Pittsburgh with 3. So I'm like, I really have a pick in the game. When it dropped to 2.5, I'm on Kansas City they're just the team that finds a way to win. Pittsburgh's overrated. Pittsburgh has finally dropped back to earth a little bit. I do agree Pickens makes a huge difference, but when Pittsburgh plays some of the better teams, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and now Kansas City, they're not on the same level. Now, this reverts to the Kansas City of old. I don't want to lay more than 3.5 points. It's a road game. I expect Pittsburgh's defense to show up. I still have a lot of concerns about the Kansas City offensive line. And I was duped last week. If that game were a Sunday game, I'm for sure on Houston, especially at 3.5. And then the first drive of the game, Mahomes is 30 yards rushing. and he trucks a defender into the end zone for a touchdown on the first drive as well. It's like, wait a second, didn't you have an ankle injury? Or weren't you supposed to possibly be out, 3 to 4? If you were human, you'd be out 4 to 6 weeks. But you're Mahomes, so you're 100% the week later rushing for 27 yards in the first drive. So I can't go against Kansas City in that spot. At 2.5, I'm on Kansas City for sure. I'm not going to play this as a contest pick because I actually will get to the next game. I really do like the next game a lot more. And I thought maybe I would put my picks in early, but I don't want to do that this week. Mahomes last week, maybe one of the things with the injury, he got the ball out in under 2.5 seconds. And on those quick throws, it's like he's acting like Tua now. He's getting the ball out. I think it was like 2.48 seconds. He was 17 for 19 with 155 yards and a touchdown. So basically, if you tell me Mahomes is getting the ball out in under 2.5 seconds, he's unstoppable. What are they going to do? Hollywood Brown is running crossing routes. You have Kelsey, of course, 5-7 yards over the middle. There's no way, and that's perfect for Hopkins, who may not want to go deep anymore. Maybe getting the ball 8 to 10 yards downfield is perfect. If the concern is, hey, we got to get the ball out quickly, that really neutralizes the TJ Watt effect against a really banged up, poor offensive line. I don't know what Humphrey's story is going to be. I don't know if you saw any news about him playing.
He's going to be out.
He's going to be out. So, yeah. But hey, it doesn't matter if you and me are blocking. If Mahomes gets the ball out in 2 seconds, snap, throw, that's not a way to. It's going to be very hard to beat them. So, I definitely need to be on Kansas City at 2.5 or less. Pittsburgh was very, very disappointing against the run last week. Baltimore 220 rush yards, 5.8 yards per carry. Kansas City doesn't really have a run game, but that's a good way to also neutralize TJ Watt. Just run the ball against him a few times, even if you're not really having that much success. If you run the ball, if you mix it up and run the ball at him a few times, it kind of keeps him a little bit back. As long as Kansas City's not playing from behind, I don't see how they don't find a way to win. And of course, the refs. It's like every week the refs just find a way to give a couple extra possessions to Kansas City, whether it's a defensive holding penalty or something on a third down that keeps a drive alive. This team just kind of has that destiny, and I couldn't at under 3. I think the perfect line in this game is 3, and I think Kansas City's going to win by 3. So,
yeah,
if you're asking me to make a line, it's 3 and 3.5. I'm on Pitt. I'd rather be on -2.5 Kansas City, but it's not a contest pick.
Yeah, me neither, especially because you have to submit it early, super early, which
really early by tomorrow morning, like 7 a.m.
Yeah, absurd. You don't get any injury reports for Sunday, like not one. So that's a tough deal here. I really hate these Wednesday games. It ruins everything for fantasy too. Like you have to make waiver wire claims super quickly, and then you have to set your lineup. It's just a mess.
Well, I was listening to John Gruden. Speaking of your John Gruden shirt, I was listening to Gruden talk on a podcast last week, and he was talking how much he hates Thursday night football. And he said, listen, when you have Thursday night football, first of all, the guys need time to rest their bodies. We know that. And a lot of weird and funky things happen on these short weeks. But on short weeks, you can't prepare. He's like, he said, as a coach, you can't go in and prepare red zone. You can't go in and watch and really learn and understand another team's blitz package and their stunts and their twists and things of that nature. And it calls for bad football, which is why coaching really matters a ton on some of these short week games. And I think you've talked about this a number of times, whether it's coaching or just I want the better team because I want the talent to prevail. I want the team here that knows how to win games. They don't really need the coach. The coach is on the field, Mahomes. So that's just another reason to be on Kansas City in a short week. You can't go against the Chiefs in this kind of situation when they're playing for the 1 seed. But I hate these short weeks. I think it ruins everything. It's bad for the game. It's bad for the players. And you just get a bad product all the way around. So I tend not to bet and follow a lot. Well, follow, of course, but bet on these games has served me the wrong way over the years.
It really does benefit the better team here. It's tough to take an underdog on Thursday night unless you're pretty sure that the favorite's not going to be focused or something. I think that's like the only way you do it. But, as I said, the Chiefs will be focused here. Their mission is to get the number 1 seed. And I think I will bet the game. It won't be 3 units, as I said on the site. It might be 1 or 2 units, maybe 2. But yeah, Pickens being back certainly helps. But then again, he may not be 100%. He wasn't able to play last week, and last week only being 4 days ago. So I do think that there's a chance that he exits early because not being able to play against Baltimore, like if you were healthy, like you would have played against Baltimore. But the fact that he couldn't play at all, and now he's come back 4 days later, I don't know, just seems weird to me that he's suddenly ready 4 days later. It's not like 7 days later. So
Well, it's not so much 4 days later. It's he hasn't played in a couple of weeks, so
right,
that extra a couple of days of rest. But you're right, because wouldn't you think that he would rather, from a divisional perspective, play in the Ravens game than the Kansas City game? But that being said, I don't think this really has much to do with Pickens. Really, it's about Mahomes. If Mahomes will do exactly what he needs to do to win this game by a field goal late. Hard to lay the points because they could win by 1 or 2. But I think this is like a 23-20 type of game. Fewer possessions because Kansas City controls clock. And again, you're looking at Mahomes. Like, the guy is just a machine. He's supposedly injured, and yet what was his rushing prop? If I told you he's rushing for 30 yards in the first quarter, it's like, okay, I don't want to hear about Mahomes' injuries ever again.
he just got it on the first drive.
He's 100%
right?
every game.
Yeah, it's absurd. High ankle sprain. Like, he shouldn't even be playing. And like, and then he runs. He breaks the prop on the first drive. Mike saying he likes the hat, but better than the Halloween hat. You didn't see the Halloween hat. I think the Halloween is on Thursday. So Andy got to see my Halloween hat that I just found randomly and I put on. It was the hat that Carl wears on The Walking Dead. I'm not sure if you know that show, or if you've seen that show, but so the chat was torn. Some said it looked good, some said it did not look good, but it seems like this hat is a hit, so we'll keep it. Purple Parish says, careful, there's a lot of injury discussion going on here. Someone's dad might get offended. Yeah. George Pickens injured, of course. Let's see if we can get George Pickens' dad to send angry tweets at me too. All right, let's get to the next game. We have Ravens at the Texans. This line is really shot up. It was a 3 on the advanced spread, and now it's like 5.5. So it just gets steamed up here. And you kind of have to wonder what Houston has to play for here. They're locked into the number 4 seed, and they just saw Tank Dell go down. So, like, really, why would they play their guys in this game? Like, knowing that their number 2 receiver just got hurt. Like, what if other players get injured? If I'm the Texans, I really think about sitting guys. I know it's week 17, not week 18, but still, like, really, what's the point? And it's not like they have a first-round bye or anything, so they have to. It'd be nice to give them 2 weeks off and just get ready, because they don't seem to be in a good place right now. Now, the Ravens aren't in a great spot either, because they're coming off a win against the Steelers, like really a big win against our arch rival, and now they play a team that they walloped in the playoffs. So I'm not sure how focused they're going to be. Still, though, I think I'd be on Baltimore here. They're just the better team. But given how bad their pass defense is, if the Texans do play their starters, like, a backdoor cover is not out of the question, especially at this number now that we're creeping up. Like, especially if it gets to 6, like that's when you're in the danger zone. 5.5 is still on Baltimore, but I don't really see a good betting opportunity here. So who do you like this game?
Yeah, I like Baltimore, and this is where I considered putting in picks tomorrow. See, I disagree with you on week 17 sitting players. I don't think teams are going to start resting players right now and start thinking about rest and bye weeks. Now, it is a good point about Tank Dell. I think that more demoralized the team. I don't think they're going to say, you know what, let me take out Nico Collins, and Nico's not going to play because we don't want him to get hurt. So I'm all but guaranteeing that Nico Collins will play in this game. Stroud is going to play in this game. And if these guys play, you're not going to play a second string offensive line, although a lot of their offensive line got banged up last week as it is. So you're already playing second string offensive linemen across the board in Houston. But unless you're going to put in all of your second string players, you're not going to start mixing and matching. So I believe that they're going to all play. Houston, for me, with Houston, it comes down to the early down play calling. We talked about this ad nauseum this year with Bobby Slowick. It's constant. It's first down run, second down run, 3rd and 7, long third down. It's amazing. Last week at one point they were 7 for 13 on third downs with an average yards to go of over 9, and that's the story of the season. Stroud has constantly been bailing them out, and you mentioned Baltimore's poor secondary in general, poor pass defense in general. So certainly possible that they'll be in these long third down situations. But how many times can you ask Stroud to continue to just bail them out? But Baltimore is not an overrated team. Baltimore is a top team. They're one of the certainly top, I think, 5. I actually think I have them at 3 in my power rankings. Let's take a quick glance. I have them at 3. They're for sure in the top 5. If you want to tell me they're not number 3, fine. They're the number 1 rushing offense. They're the number 1 passing offense. So they're the number 1 offense overall. They're number 1 in the red zone. They're number 3 on third downs. So this is a very, very dangerous team. Until they get into the postseason, probably divisional round or divisional round and beyond, where they decide, you know what, we have Derrick Henry, we're not going to run the football. So until they make those boneheaded decisions late in the playoffs, right now they're a top team. And where they're good is against the run. So if you tell me that Houston wants to go out, we know they're going to go out and run the ball. First down, early downs, they're going to run the football. They'll be in these long yardage situations. I don't think Houston continues to have this success on these third and longs, especially in these types of with these types of opponents. I mean, doing it against some of the inferior teams, I get it. But Baltimore, even though they don't have a great passing defense, they're not a bad team. They're a top team. So I like Baltimore in this game. I also look back at the playoff game from last year. You mentioned, there's revenge there potentially with Houston. I don't think they look at this as a revenge. I think they just want to, like you said, get out of Dodge, get out of the regular season healthy. But I think the matchups really, really favors Baltimore in this spot. Going back into that game was 10-10 at halftime. Baltimore dominated the second half. They rushed for 229 yards. And by the way, that was without Derrick Henry. Lamar had 100 yards rushing on 11 carries in that game. And overall, Houston was held to 4.3 yards per play. So I do look at Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers was banged up. I saw him pop up on the injury report. I think he matters, considering some of the other receivers have trouble catching the ball, although Rashad Bateman's had a couple of good games recently. I think Baltimore is a type of team that when they play against a good opponent, they really can kind of, they did this against Buffalo. They've done this in the past against good teams. I think this game could get ugly. I don't think it's a real blow. I don't think it's like a 34-10 type of blowout, but I have this game like 31-20. I think this is a 10 to 14 point game, and I'm really considered playing because I do have like 5 or 6 games that I really like this week. So I am considering playing Baltimore, but that locks me into all the other picks. So I'm going to think about it overnight. When I wake up in the morning, decide if I want to just submit the card early. But I like Baltimore a lot in this game.
I had to laugh a little bit because you said like Baltimore is definitely in the top 5. I have them number 6 in my power rankings. So. Okay. But you're totally correct that this is a great matchup for the Ravens for multiple reasons. Like one, as you said, the running game, the Texans can't stop the run, so you have that. The Texans are also horrible against mobile quarterbacks, not just running backs, but mobile quarterbacks especially. And, obviously Lamar Jackson can run circles around their defense just as he did in the playoffs. I think he'll do it again. I just think that this might be sort of a flat spot for Baltimore. So it's my one concern coming off such a big win against Pittsburgh. I know they are playing for something here, but it's not like they can clinch anything this week. Like even if they win and Pittsburgh loses, like they still need to win next week unless Pittsburgh also loses next week. So
I just don't think in week 17 that's really like, in the scouting report, in the game, in the management, in the player meetings, I don't think they're having that conversation. Like I said, if they're playing, if Lamar's playing, if these guys are playing in the game, I think they're playing to win the game. And I don't think they're thinking right now about, maybe we'll rest if we're up, 7, we're up by 14, and then the back door is open. I think there's equal motivation, really. If anything, I think there's more motivation for Baltimore because even if Pittsburgh wins an hour before, they still need to win games. And Pittsburgh plays Cincinnati next week on the road. I believe it's on the road. So I see no reason why Baltimore wouldn't go in full motivation to win the game.
Yeah, I was just thinking about
it's in Pittsburgh. I'm sorry, it's not in. It's Pittsburgh in home against Baltimore.
Yeah, I was thinking like, well, what if this is like Buffalo last week against the Patriots? Like Buffalo coming off the big win against Detroit. Now they're the big favorite against the Patriots.
Sunday afternoon different than a Christmas prime time.
That's true. That's absolutely true. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is a showcase game. That's true. I'm and
it's a showcase game. Speaking of showcase game, Lamar can still win the MVP.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's not like I liked Houston here. I was already in Baltimore as well. Just wasn't planning on betting it, but the showcase thing is something I didn't consider. So
I would have used. Yeah. I've been writing down because I shouldn't do this because I'm annoyed about it. I've been writing down who I would pick in Survivor every single week since I was eliminated in week 3. Yeah, and I'd still be alive if I went with the Jets on that Thursday day game, which I changed last minute. In any event, I would be on Baltimore. I had saved Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Kansas City in my fake hypothetical Survivor, and I would be on Baltimore this week ahead of Kansas City.
Yeah, me too.
I'd be more, even though it's a road, both road. I'm more confident in Baltimore winning this game than I am Kansas City.
Me too. Who would you like in the regular Week 17 slate for Survivor?
Colts.
Okay, you're on the Colts.
Oh no. Yeah, Colts Giants.
Okay. Do you have the Buccaneers?
I would have already used
Okay.
Buccaneers.
Okay.
If I had the Bucks, then I would have obviously preferred the Bucks.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would have already burned the Bucks on Thanksgiving when they beat Carolina in overtime. That would have been my Bucks day.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I marked down Tampa as my pick.
I'm hoping as many people get through as possible, so I don't feel stupid losing out on potentially a 7-figure payout.
Oh man, that's rough.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So Bagley says here, just realized that this doesn't relate to this game in particular, but with these two teams. So just realize if the Chiefs beat the Steelers and the Texans beat the Ravens, it locks the Bills into the 2 seed. They may rest the starters. So parlaying Chiefs money line and Texans money line and Jets against the spread seems like a good bet. Basically 2 leg for the payout of a 3 leg. Yeah, I mean, look, if you think Houston can win, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, what's very interesting about that, because I was wondering about this and just kind of teasing ahead. The contest line for Buffalo is 11. The current line for Buffalo is 9.5.
Yeah.
The contest lines, and I didn't realize why now you're bringing this up. The contest line is coming out, making the assumption that something's going to happen that Buffalo needs the game. So
that would require Pittsburgh to win.
Whatever it is, those lines are both 11. I'm thinking, did I miss something? Like, did Buffalo hit 11 at some point today or yesterday? Like, I don't think they did. I think the highest I saw for a second was like a 10.5. But I know it's sitting at 9.5. But Cornegay and Circa both came out and put 11 on contest lines, making a statement that line is going to move up.
Interesting. I didn't look at the lines yet for the contest. I'm not used to them being out on Tuesday.
Yeah.
But no, that's.
I want to take a look because they have to be submitted tomorrow morning if you want to play.
I'm not going to play without having any injury reports for Sunday. I'm not doing it. I just can't. And it's not like I love the two sides enough. Like if I was in love with the Chiefs and the Ravens, I think I might do it. But I just can't. There's just too many games where you might have a free square. Like if, for example, we'll get to it later, but like if the Dolphins are eliminated, I don't want to take the Browns, but like the Dolphins just might mail that one in. I don't know. It could happen, but not again. It's a bad example because I don't really want to take Cleveland. But there are other examples as well that we'll get to. So anyway, it's the other game on the Christmas slate, technically in the Circa Survivor. The Seahawks at the Bears. This line is Seahawks -3.5. So it's a regular Thursday game. Last Thursday game of the season. So we made it. No more Thursday games after this one. This one, I was digging around on the playoff calculator, on ESPN's playoff calculator. I couldn't get this game to mean anything for the Seahawks.
It does. It's very weird, but it does.
It's like percentage points for strength of victory, but like
exactly strength of victory. I can tell you exactly what it is.
Okay. Like ultimately, it was like
Seahawks.
If
the Seahawks win and the Rams win, theoretically, they could still get in next week if they win, of course. Mm-hmm. And they need 4 wins out of the following 6 games: Packers, Jets, Lions, Falcons, Broncos, Dolphins. 4 of those 6 teams need to win, and if that's the case, then Seattle could still get in.
Win this week or next week?
Win this week.
Okay, can you read those again? Packers, Falcons.
Packers, Jets, Lions, Falcons, Broncos, Dolphins.
Okay. Well, all right. Okay, so I guess this does mean something. I couldn't.
Let's just go along the assumption that this game matters to Seattle. They want to win this game.
Okay.
They're coming off a loss. There's no way they're going to rest starters because you know what? Next week we have to play the Rams, and if the Rams win on Saturday after we already play, then we're probably going to be eliminated with other games. There's no way that's going through their minds. No way. These are professional. This is a professional team. They're coming out to win this game. Okay. They're preparing to play hard to win this game.
Okay. If that's the case, I think you have to be in Seattle here. Chicago doesn't have a coach. They don't have. They promoted their offensive coordinator to interim head coach, and so they don't really have a real head coach, and they don't have an offensive coordinator. And so to prepare, you talked about preparing. Like if they had a real head coach, sure. But they don't have a real head coach, or an offensive coordinator. So how do they prepare for a game on just 3 days of rest? I just don't see how they can do that. And we've seen Chicago just capsize ever since they fired Eberflus. Not that I don't think Eberflus is not a good coach, But this guy Thomas Brown is just so overwhelmed right now. They got blown out in 3 consecutive games. Now, granted, 2 of those games are against a Group B team, and a Group A team. But I would put Seattle in Group B as well. I mean, they went toe to toe with Minnesota on Sunday. They actually outgained Minnesota in total yards and yards per play. They had a chance to win at the end, but Metcalf ran the wrong route, and then Smith threw an interception. And plus, there's a missed field goal and some weird mismanagement on the penultimate drive too. So the Seahawks could have won that game. And so I think, as you said, coming off a loss, they're going to be motivated. And if they believe this game means something, then yeah, I think they'll come out strong and beat the Bears. If this game were on a Sunday, I probably wouldn't be as bullish on Seattle, but the fact that they get this advantage on short rest or short preparation, I think you have to be on Seattle here. Who do you like?
You have to take Seattle, and I'll keep this one shorter because I spent a lot of time on the other 2 games. Seattle's 5-1 on the road. They're 3-6 at home, so they've been better on the road this year. Chicago, we talk about coaching, especially on a short week. They don't have a coach. You've already said it. Their offense was a little bit better last week, but they haven't topped 17 points since the coaching change. But more concerning about the Bears is their defense. They've given up now 102 points in 3 games since the coaching change. So their offense stinks, but their defense stinks even more. So now you have a team on a short week without a coach against a team that's motivated, that's off a loss, that still needs the win to keep their playoff hopes alive, supposedly, and is 5-1 on the road when they're 3-6 at home, which is weird because Seattle has a pretty good home field advantage, I would have thought. So for me, I'm on Seattle. I don't love laying the 3.5. This is not a contest selection, but I'm not even giving consideration to Chicago. This is, again, we talked about favorites covering the whole year. Oh, we're getting an extra half a point, 3.5, 4, whatever the spread may be. Nope. I like the better team that has to win, that's motivated with a better coach, that's going to be more prepared, and easy pick Seattle.
Yeah. The fact that it means something, I think so. I think it's an easier pick. All right, so we have a bonus divorce package here in Week 17. We have 3 Saturday games. The first one, kind of have to feel for the Chargers here. Got put into this 1:00 game on the East Coast against the Patriots. So it's Chargers, the Patriots. This line is Chargers -4. I like the Chargers a lot here. So Jim Harbaugh is just so good at these early games on the East Coast throughout his career. 9-1 against the spread in these 1:00 East Coast games. The only loss he had was in Week 3 this year at Pittsburgh when Justin Herbert got injured. And that was a 10-10 game when Herbert went out. So it really could be 10-0 against the spread. He just thrives in these games. We also seen the Chargers thrive against bad teams this year, against teams in Group D or Group F. They've beaten the Raiders by 12. They've beaten the Browns by 17, Titans by 10, Falcons by 4, Panthers by 23, Broncos by 18. And then when the Patriots have gone against Group A or Group B teams, I've had the Chargers in Group B, they've lost to the Niners by 17, the Rams by 6, which was a larger deficit until garbage time, and then 19 to the Dolphins. And then the one game they kept close was last week against Buffalo, and Buffalo's coming off that big win against Detroit. So I think they were not focused for that game at all. And I just can't see the Patriots having 2 great games in a row like that. Like they played at their best last week. I just don't see that happening again. I think we saw them kind of like melt down in the second half where they started having turnovers, which, it's commonplace for them. They got the backdoor touchdown to make it closer than it really was. It was a 10-point game at the end. It's kind of crazy that the Patriots played so well for most of the game and the Bills played so poorly for most of the game, and yet the Bills were up by 10 with 2 minutes to go. So I think the Chargers take it to the Patriots here, take their anger out on the Patriots for being placed in this 1:00 game. It's like a sign of disrespect almost. Who do you like this game?
I like New England, and this is where I get, we've talked about the favorite. This is the one underdog that I kind of like this week. And you mentioned some of the games that New England has played. Now, New England obviously was close last week, so we'll get to that in a minute. But they were close against Indy. They lost on a 2-point conversion late. That was a home game. They were actually competitive. It was a game against the Rams. I was on the Rams in the contest. I think the line was 3.5 in that game, and that game was close throughout the game. They lost that game by 6. So I don't want to go back too much further than that. Obviously, the home game before that was the Jet game, but that was 2 months ago. They won that game. So they're at home. They beat the Jets. They were relatively competitive against the Rams. They obviously had the game and then blew it late, lost on a 2-point conversion in Indy. And then last week they competed. Buffalo was really bad in that game, and we'll talk about that game with Buffalo a little bit later. But they competed. And the one thing about this team, even when they were down big against Arizona, and they certainly lost that game by margin, but they fought at the end. I mean, obviously, a lot of almost all their points, they scored 3 points until the last 6 minutes of the game. The one thing that I see, though, is that they're fighting, they're competing, they're trying until the end. And the one thing we know about the Chargers is they don't keep their foot on the gas. When they take that lead late, they do go into run the clock mode. They're off a solid win. Herbert was pretty good last week. They don't have that run game that is really needed to kind of, like Philly or Baltimore late in the games to break that 50, 60-yard run. They don't have that ability right now. So I think that this game could stay very, very close. I don't like the fact that it's a West Coast team. I don't care Harbaugh or traveling on the time. What I care more about is a West Coast warm weather team now coming into the cold weather. Although it's not going to be like 10 degrees, it's still, we've seen now with NFL and college, some of these warm weather teams like Dolphins, who can't win in the cold in general, coming into colder weather cities and have struggled. So I don't think Herbert will struggle in this situation, but he doesn't have receivers who can really catch outside of McConkey. They don't have the run game that's going to dominate. And I do think New England continues to fight. The one thing I would be concerned about, and I'm still picking New England in the game, and I see the line has come down. I mean, this line opened up, I think it opened up at 6, or the look ahead was 6. 6 opened 5.5. It was then 4.5 very quickly, and now, of course, down to 4. So the professional money is on my side as well. The one thing I'm concerned about here is we've seen now with divisional games like Chiefs Raiders, when you give that effort and you come oh so close, how does it feel after you lose? Now, the Patriots, the one thing I'll say is they've lost some of those games and are happy with the fact that they're in the game, especially the fans, New England fans. Hey, we're in the game. Drake May's playing well. We're happy. We don't care about the results of the game. They kind of feel good about it. But is there somewhat of a letdown spot now because they were close? They kind of blew the game. They had that game. They blew it against Buffalo, and now they're going against a non-divisional opponent. Is there like that motivational edge that they lose in preparation this week? But I do like them to be a live dog in this game. I think this game could be close. I'm not a huge fan of the Chargers. I have them. I move them back down in my own personal ratings. I have them at 14. So they're kind of right around that 0, right around an average team. I don't think they're good enough to be laying points on the road. You make a good point. They've won a lot of these games against you call it Group D or lower teams, and the Pats are certainly in that level. But I think the Pats try. I don't see the Chargers running away and running up scores. I think if they get up 3, they'll be very content to sit on the ball. And if they're up by 10, Drake May has shown that when he's down 10, he's going to try to score. And credit them for, and you and I both had Buffalo to win that game, and you and I both hedged, and you and I both played the other side of that as well, and won twice with the New England comeback. So I like that to happen here, and I wouldn't be surprised if they had the lead and it required a Herbert fourth quarter come from behind win. So I like this game to be a close game.
I'm not too concerned about the weather. You mentioned that. I just looked it up. I mean, obviously it's way too early. Things can change, but it's projected to be 39 degrees. So if it's
I saw snow in the forecast.
Well, if it's 39, it's not going to be snowing. So it might be some rain. But I don't know.
Yeah, I see right now 39 degrees. It says slight chance of snow. But at 39, it's not going to snow. But I do see slight chance of snow. To me, it's a lower scoring, run the ball type of game. The over under in this game is 42. I don't think the Chargers are blowing anybody out.
Okay. Well, I think they'll continue to do so. I don't, like you mentioned, some of the wins the Patriots have had, or the close games like against the Colts and the Jets. Like I have the Chargers significantly better than those teams. So I don't think like the Patriots at like on the upper tier or the second tier level, they just haven't competed. Like the one game they were close outside of the Bills game. So you said the Rams game, but that that was like a 14, 17 point lead for the Rams until the end, and the Patriots scored twice to make it close. Like I don't know.
That game was 14-10 at halftime. It ended up being 28-13 going into the fourth quarter, and then the Patriots scored twice. Exactly, but that's what I can see that route taking place here, where there's late scores from New England that get in the back door, but I can also see the scenario where they're ahead. And that's why
there's definitely going to be There's definitely going to be late scoring here. So for DFS, if you like Drake May, I don't blame you. He's the Blake Bortles circa 2015. He's just like posting garbage time all the time. He even had a touchdown last week. All right, so we get to the middle game of the divorce package 2.0 here in week 17. We have Broncos at the Bengals. This line is Bengals -3. It's juiced to -120, so might be headed to 3.5. So for this one, I don't really have an opinion. I wish I could. Like, I just have been anti these teams, both these teams, all year. Like, ever since the Broncos started winning, I think they are a clear fraud. 6 of their 9 wins are against Group D or Group F, and the other 3 wins are like so circumstantial or fluky. Like against the Colts when Jonathan Taylor dropped the ball, they would have been down 20-7. Like, they probably lose that game. They beat Tampa when Tampa's coming off revenge against the Lions. They beat the Jets barely when the Jets are flying out to London next week. Like, those are their 9 wins there. So I don't like this team. I think they're overrated. I think the defense can be beaten. The defense is good. Don't get me wrong, but it can be beaten, as we've seen Jameis Winston do a few weeks ago. And then Jonathan Taylor had that long run. And then in the fourth quarter on Thursday's game last week, we saw Gus Edwards go nuts. So I think the Bengals can get there. Like, that's not my concern. Like, the Bengals will definitely score here. My concern for the Bengals is if they can stop Denver. And it's like kind of weird to say because Bo Nix is like a little overrated. So, but the Cincinnati's defense is so bad. They allowed 414 passing yards to Russell Wilson. If they can allow that to Russell Wilson, Bo Nix could have a good game to Cortland Sutton. Bengals can't stop the run at all. Now that Denver can't really run that well, but I still think they'll be able to run well enough to move the ball here. I had the Bengals 1.5 points better. No, sorry. I these teams about even. I think I'd like the Bengals 0.5 point better than the Broncos. If you had 1.5 points, that's 2. If you subtract 0.5 point for extra rest for Denver, it's 1.5. So I get to 1.5. So I guess I'm on Denver +3, but I really don't like either side in this game. But I mean, based on our conversations all year, I'll be shocked if you're not on the Bengals because you've been higher on the Bengals than I have. I've been pretty bearish on them, but I'm bearish on the Broncos as well. So who do you like in this game?
You're right. I'm on the Bengals, and I make the line 3.5. I've been bearish on the Broncos all season. I think they're overrated. I do agree that Cincinnati's defense has been so bad. Bo Nix, everything he's doing is short. It's efficient, but it's short. It's like Tua version. He's not throwing the ball downfield, but he is able to get the ball. He throws the ball behind the line of scrimmage. He's throwing the ball 0 to 10 yards very well. And Cincinnati's defense is going to give up yards. They're going to give up big plays because of that. But Burrow is a far better version. And Denver's defense is overrated. I mean, we saw Jameis Winston put up 497 yards and 4 touchdowns and 3 picks. And Burrow is that, except without the 3 picks. So I think this game is going to be high scoring. I'm excited about this game a lot. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. What is the weather forecast here? Just taking a quick glance. It looks like rain is in the forecast. So that could be problematic. That could lend to fewer shots downfield. My forecast says definite rain, 61 degrees, definite rain. So we'll see what that means as we near kickoff. The over-under right now in the game is 49.5. I think this game is probably in the winner probably needs to get closer to 30. I have this game at 31-24. But when you get into these higher scoring games, I don't mind laying the 3.5 points. And I am very confident in Cincinnati winning this game and continuing to give themselves a shot. I don't think they're going to get there because I think they need a little bit too much help. Certainly, if Kansas City wins, we know they're going to rest everybody for Week 17 against Denver. If Kansas City. If Kansas City loses, then they'll need the Colts to lose a game to the Giants or Titans. So they'll need some help to get in either way. But they're preparing for this game. Hey, we're 7-8. We have a chance. We're playing a team ahead of us. We have a chance. And I didn't like what I saw from Denver last week. Denver was up early in the game and then kind of took their foot off the gas. They got behind. They ran the ball on early downs to get behind the sticks. That was not impressive at all. And I think this is not going to be an easy win because of Cincinnati's defense. But I like Cincinnati, and I don't mind laying 3.5.
Okay. Yeah, even 3.5. Okay. I wouldn't mind him minus 3.
Is this line 3.5 right now? Yeah, it's 3.5. It's 3 in circa. It's 3 in circa.
Yeah, 3 minus 120. I'm seeing in most
but
places.
Circa's line from a contest perspective is 3.
Okay.
Super contest has it at 3.5.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, 3.5 is a tough sell for me. 3, I can get behind 3, I guess. But like I said, I don't have much interest in this game. But it really depends on how much you like the Bengals because we both agreed the Broncos are overrated. but I've been on the Bengals overrated camp for this entire season or most of the season, and you've liked them more, so it makes sense that
I
you
think
like
the
them.
Bengals have been unlucky. I think we've talked about it a few
Yeah,
times. Like there were
yeah,
games that they should have won. They didn't show up week one.
yeah.
That really, when they go back on this season, if they missed the playoffs by one game, shame on them for not being ready for week one
Mm-hmm.
against New England. They really should. They I don't say they should have beaten Baltimore. They had at least one of those games in the bag. They ended up missing a field goal in overtime because they ended up getting to the 35-yard line and run, long field goal, miss.
Unbelievable.
So that was foolish, but I'm sure they wish they could have that drive back, that sequence back. But they just, I don't want to call them unlucky because they brought this upon themselves with poor play calling and just not being prepared. But they're, to me, a playoff team. They're good enough to be a playoff team. And it's unfortunate that they're in this position. It's unfortunate for us that we're going to have to watch Denver or Colts at Buffalo instead of Cincinnati at Buffalo potentially in the first round of the playoffs. I think every NFL fan would prefer that matchup, unless you're a fan of the other teams. But from a fan perspective, that would be a much better matchup. Neither team would get a stop in that game. That would be great. So it's disappointing, but I do think Cincinnati will give themselves a chance, albeit a low chance, going into Week 18.
I'll say this. In addition to being a fan of the teams, the bettors will like it better because fading these like a horrible Broncos, not a horrible Broncos team, but a very average Broncos team against the Bills is just very appealing. They won't be able to make that line high enough in week one of the playoffs. So looking forward to that at least. I'm not asking Walter, why don't you use stats like EPA anymore? You just say group blah 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 based on your own thoughts as a stat that don't support your narratives anymore. Well, I mean, like, look, I use the EPA rankings to make my groups, so that's part of it. But if you do a control F on my 2 picks pages, the early and the late, I mentioned EPA 4 times, so I still look at it. It's not like, hey, I don't like this. EPA doesn't say what I think. Like, I don't know. I just look at everything unbiased.
I like at this time of the season, you talk about Group A, Group B. I very much like looking at resume and why a team might be deserving of some sort of, well, look who they beat. They didn't beat anybody good. They did beat good teams, or they lost, but these are good losses. These are quality losses. Look at college football. Not to bother anybody with college football right now, but look at these teams that got blown out last weekend, because they didn't play anybody. They got into the playoffs with 11-1 records because they didn't play anybody. A team like Denver, they do have some quality wins. They beat Tampa. That's a quality win. But if you go back early in the season, that Jets game where they won 10-9, that's not a quality win. They should have lost that game. The Jets found a way to lose, and they won that game. There were games that they won, situationally against Tampa and some others that they don't deserve to be 9-6. This is not a 10-win team, and their EPA is probably not going to speak to that. So it's very important to understand who they beat, why they're where they are, and not be biased by maybe some of the metrics that, against poor or another team like Cincinnati, who played Baltimore twice and played them very, very well, and they're 7-8. I don't think we can dispute that Cincinnati is better than Denver. I think it's an easy call that Cincinnati is better than Denver. You probably have it closer to even. I have it. I have it that Cincinnati is the better team. I did tell you, just a side note, about half an hour ago, more, before we started recording, that I'm going to play the overtime in the San Jose State South Florida game to go to overtime because it was a 4-point game, and I think there's a good chance. And South Florida got the ball back and just kicked the field goal 2 seconds to go, so we're going to overtime. So
nice.
Plus 800. There you go. That's how we bet. I can't name a single player in this game, and we just won $800 because the game went to overtime on a last-second field that doinked off the upright through.
That's awesome.
God bless live betting.
Congrats on that $800 win. That's great.
That's how we work here.
No, you're right.
Baby, Vegas.
You're right. It's well, first of all, you said 2 things. One, with the college football, we went 5-0 with our picks with 4 playoff.
Yeah, you were amazing. I tailed you a little bit because I didn't really know, and then I figured, you know what, let me go with your gut rather than mine. And the games were so bad.
Yeah,
there was nothing to live bet during the games because the game was just awful.
These teams do not deserve to be in the playoffs. That's why I thought, like, I texted you. I'm like, I like all the favorites.
You were spot on.
Yeah, these teams didn't belong. Like Indiana didn't belong. SMU didn't belong. Who else was in there? I thought Tennessee, like, if any of these bad teams belong, maybe Tennessee, but even then, like, they weren't that great. I forget the other team I forget whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, none of those teams belong in the college football playoff. So I will not be on all favorites this week coming up. I still do like some of the favorites, but still, like really, they did such a bad job of making this fall team field. And I saw like so many people on Twitter, they're like, "See, we don't need 12 teams. Like, these are all blowouts." I'm like, "What? You need to pick the best teams. Like, you need stop putting in SMU and Indiana. Like, it's such garbage. Like, you're right. They played nobody. Like,
It should teach those teams to make your schedule. And I know it's hard to
yeah,
do, but you got to play better teams. That's the bottom line. And
yeah,
if you're Alabama, they had one bad game against Oklahoma that knocked them out. Miami had one bad game that knocked them out.
yeah,
But at least those teams had a resume aside from a bad loss that at least we know that those teams could be competitive. And that's bringing us back to the NFL. Denver, and I can't wait to talk playoff football because that's the first thing I look at with these teams is your resume. I don't care about your EPA. I don't care about your yards per play, which is a stat I love to look at now. Yards per play, offense and defense, red zone efficiency, third down efficiency. Those are the things that I really look towards as opposed to an EPA, which I'm not. I mean, it's a newer stat. I'm a little bit more old school. And I obviously take out garbage time, so I don't really care about what you do, when the other team's playing prevent. But I want to know who you played. I want to know what your competitive games were. I want to look at comparable games in comparable situations. And that's where I come to Cincinnati being a significantly better team. When Denver played Baltimore, they lost 41-10. And that was a terrible spot for Baltimore in that game. I think that was a Sunday, and they were playing Thursday night against Cincinnati the week after. Cincinnati goes to play Baltimore, and it's 34-31 or whatever. It was like maybe it was 40, maybe it was a game in the 40s. Great game, and again, it's of course divisional, but to me, Cincinnati is a better team. They're a clear-cut better team in this game. Are they going to win 8 out of 10 times? No, no one's going to win 80% of the time. It's obviously closer than that margin, but I don't mind laying the hook here. Give me Cincinnati. I think this is a higher scoring game. I don't think Denver's defense can compete, and I would like to believe that Cincinnati is going to have a shot in Week 18.
Yeah, that's where we differ in this game. I have both these teams as Group C teams. I have Cincinnati in my power ranking 16 and Denver 17, so right next to each other. So
I have Cincinnati 11.
Okay, yeah, and that's the difference. You like them more. Yeah, I guess we'll see. But the other thing I wanted to add was that in my spreadsheet, I made a difference. I made a change this year where I have all the results by team listed chronologically. I always had that, but now I have below that I have all the results from that team against each group, and so it just makes it so easy to see whom these teams have played and whom they've beaten. And
well, I'm going to put you on the spot. Throw out a spread. Don't look at your computer model. Give me a spread: Buffalo, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Denver. Just off the top of your
head. So Buffalo is neutral site.
In Buffalo. Buffalo. Playoff game.
Playoff game. Okay. So yeah. Well, it's a Group C, a Group A, right? So I would say Buffalo minus for against Denver. I would say -10, and against Cincinnati -9.
Okay. I mean, my computer, my number would be -8 against 7.5 against Cincinnati, and Denver 10, 12, 10.5 Denver. So 10.5, 7.5. Those two matchups. I would have a 3-point difference. I think over 10 against Denver, and 7.5, 8 against Cincinnati.
Okay.
And I would really, really like Cincinnati plus 7.5 in that game. And 10.5, 10. I wouldn't want to be laying 10.5 with Buffalo in a playoff game.
Okay.
We've seen enough from Buffalo in playoffs when they played Skylar Thompson and the game was close. Not want to lay 10.5 points.
Yeah, I do think this Buffalo team's better though. I think I would lay.
No, I agree with that. I'm just hypothetical. These two. I just wanted to hear your thoughts. These two teams. So you have about a point difference. Anyway.
Yeah, I would certainly be on Buffalo against Denver at 10.5, up to 13, I think. Against Cincinnati though, you have a much better chance of backdoor cover, so I'd be worried about that. Like Burrow could just elevate his team, so. That's a close one. I don't think I'd definitely be on Cincinnati, but I think I might eventually fall on it. But yeah. All right, let's get to the next game. This is the last game of the divorce package Super No Week 17. Cardinals at the Rams. This line is 6.5. Rams 6.5. It's a far cry from what the advanced spread was, which is Rams minus 3.5. So this has gone 3 points through the key number of 6. And you can understand why, I guess, for two reasons. One, the Cardinals were eliminated from the playoffs, so we don't really know how they're going to play. I mean, yeah, we just saw Dallas play their hearts out on national TV against the Buccaneers, but every team's different. We don't know how the Cardinals are going to respond. Maybe Kyler Murray is going to be playing video games all week, preparing for the offseason. Second, the Cardinals suffered some injuries. They lost Jonah Williams during the game, which is like if you lose one lineman, it's okay. But they were already out. They were already without Paris Johnson, their best lineman. So they're missing 2 tackles in the second half. And then they lost James Conner, which is a huge deal because they're already down their number 2 and number 3 running backs. James Conner was just an animal in this game until he got injured. And then they had to lean on Michael Carter, who gave them no offense at all. So given that they're eliminated, like I can't really see them bringing back James Conner here or even Trey Benson. And maybe Benson comes back. I don't know. But then do the linemen even play? Like, what if they're without both tackles against this Rams pass rush, which has been really good? What if they don't have a running game? If the Cardinals have everyone and they play hard, I think they can cover the spread. I just don't know if they will. And I think that's what makes this game very difficult to handicap. So I'm leaning Rams here, but I don't really see a good betting angle here. So what do you think about this game?
I like the Rams in this game because I think there's a clear difference when you have a team like a Dallas who's been out of it, even though I think someone said 2 weeks ago that they thought that they still had a chance. They knew they were out of it. Arizona just got eliminated last week. There's a huge difference between a team that's been eliminated for several weeks, like the Jets who played hard, or Dallas who played hard, and a team that got eliminated the week before. Because that week before, now it's your demoralizing week of, oh my God, we're not in this anymore. And that's where guys will sit. Connor got hurt. He didn't come back into the game last week. I don't see that he plays in this game. If he's not 80%, 90%, why would he go out there? Why would the team put him out there? The offensive line is banged up, and Kyler has not been good late in seasons, pretty much at any point in his career. So I think that's why this line moved from 3.5 to about 5.5, 6. It's been moving ever since. I wrote down some notes about Arizona. They gave up last week against Carolina. 36 carries, 243 yards, 6.8 yards per carry, and 3 touchdowns. Terrible. That is unbelievably bad. This defense has regressed to kind of where we thought they would be throughout earlier this season. I made a comment several weeks ago, and I've said this several times since. This is a below-average team that was playing above their record. I think at the time that they were 6-4, I said they probably should be 3-7, or at least could very likely be 3-7. Some of those games were complete fluke wins. They were not an above-average team. They've proven that they're a below-average team. They did have a nice game on the road in Minnesota. They beat the Jets by margin in a game where the Jets utterly didn't show up. That was the only game they didn't really show up. I also think the Rams here now, off of 2 poor offensive games, one, the Niners was a terrible, terrible weather. And then last week, it was freezing cold, and Stafford looked the part in that freezing cold. But they did run the ball nicely last week. They controlled the game. Obviously, the Jets, and we'll talk about the Jets a little bit later, kind of handed them the game with some coaching decisions. And if you remember last week, I said, why did I like the Rams against the Jets? Strictly coaching. And that kind of came into fruition. But here, now going back to LA, being in the controlled climate, I expect their offense to be very, very good. I expect them to put up points. And I think they're going to win this game by a good 7 to 10 points. So I don't mind laying the points here. And another reason why I say I like the Chiefs, I don't think I would take him from a contest perspective, but I do like Baltimore. I mentioned I like Cincinnati. I already mentioned I like the Patriots. And here I like the Rams. So if I like all these games, if these are the games that I'm kind of leaning towards, then that's the reason why I may put in a card early tomorrow morning, just get my card out of the way with 4 of my 5 games being now. And then we get 1 free square later. You'll have to stay tuned later for my 1 free square of the week, probably the best line of the entire season, which I'm very excited about. But I do like the Rams a lot. And like I said, we said before, as far as motivation, the Rams need to win the game. And with a win, they don't guarantee, but they all but guarantee a playoff spot. So motivation angle, coaching mismatch, They did lose to this team earlier in the season by a lot. That was a game where the Rams didn't have any players. The demoralizing loss last week, all this to me leans towards Rams, and therefore I'm on the Rams 7 to 10 plus. I like it.
I think I know who your free square is.
Yeah, well,
I won't say. I won't
we'll
say.
give it away.
I don't want to spoil it, but I think I know who it is.
If you think you know it, don't give it away.
I will not. Karen with a huge game incoming. I agree. Yeah, try to get Karen in all your lineups in DFS.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Pick 3: Cup, Keenan, Charbonnet, Garendo, Kamara. If he plays, since he wants to. I would not play Garendo. Tough Detroit run defense.
Not play Garendo, Kamara. We don't know if he's playing.
That's the issue with Kamara. You don't know, like, why would he?
Kenneth Walker may be out.
Yes. Yeah.
That would be an easy pick there.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Cup hasn't done anything lately.
Who would you say? A Cup?
He's been non-existent.
He had a good week 14. I want to say. Yeah. The past 2 games he didn't do it. Like week 15.
Well, the past 2 games was weather. So you're right.
Yeah.
I blame the weather on the lack of passing the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, like you said, controlled environment here in the dome, bad defense. I think you can play. I would play the first 3. Like Kamara comes back, you don't know what his workload is going to be. Like, are they really going to run him into the ground in this meaningless game? So I don't see it. So just wait on the Walker news. If Walker's out, Charbonnet definitely. I'll play the first 3. So good luck in your matchup this week, Mr. Magic. All right, let's get to the Sunday slate. We begin with an exciting game here. Colts at the Giants.
Is this the worst Sunday slate of football you've ever seen?
It's pretty bad. There's one game late that's good, but like the rest of it, I'm writing up these picks this week, and I'm like, this game sucks. This game sucks. This game sucks. Like there's some really bad games this week, but like I said, there's one really good game at 425. That's it. All right, so we have Colts at the Giants. This line is Colts -8, which is very interesting. It's a very interesting number because the Colts have not won a game this year by more than 8 points. So if you're laying Colts -8, you're asking them to do something they have not done this year. Although they were up big last week. They were up 38-7 against the Titans. They fell asleep at the wheel, though. The Titans came back with Mason Rudolph. And by the way, I had Mason Rudolph as my single entry DraftKings quarterback. Just because he was so cheap. It was so cheap to like pair him with Ridley. And I felt like such an idiot for most of the afternoon. Like, why did I play this bum? And then he actually like got me over the cash line like very easily at the end with his garbage time passing. And maybe we see the same thing with Drew Lock here. Drew Lock was awful last week. But I want to talk about Atlanta later when we discuss their game. I think Atlanta is a very interesting team just based on the metrics. But I do think that Drew Lock will have an easier matchup this week, especially because he'll be able to lean on the run more with Tyrone Tracy. Like, he won't have to do everything himself like he did last week. So I think the Giants can score a little bit here, especially in garbage time if they need to, and cover this line. I do not want to bet the Giants. They are a Group F team. I don't want to bet a Group F team. I don't want to bet Drew Lock. But betting Colts -8, like, that seems crazy. I don't know. Maybe it's crazy not to. What do you think?
So these off the blowout win. They were up 38-7. They pretty much took their foot off the gas, and before you knew it, it was 38-30. But that was all garbage time. The key here is Jonathan Taylor. And I'm annoyed at myself as I was watching the game. Like, why are we not betting Taylor? You knew that he was going to have a massive week. You knew they were going to try to feed him the ball. Overall, 50 carries. 50 carries in the game is that's like watching Army football. 335 yards, 6.7 yards per attempt, and 3 touchdowns. Taylor himself had 218 and 3 touchdowns. Richardson only threw the ball 11 times, and that's going to be a similar script. The Giants are 28th versus the rush. They're also 28 in takeaways. So when you talk about the Colts, what are we worried about? Can they run the football? And is Richardson going to throw picks? Is he going to give the ball away? The Giants don't take the ball away, and the Giants can't stop the run. Offensively, the Giants, you talk about Group F, you have to create your own group because this is the worst team in football by at least 3 points. I think you mentioned the cover against the Saints, the backdoor cover. That was the only game the Giants covered in their last 10 games. They have 10 straight losses, and they're 1-9 against the spread in that span. So this is a team that, whether it's DeVito, Boyle, Locke, there's no offense. There's a lame duck coach, potentially, probably. This is a team that I don't want anything to do with any amount of points. We talk about teasers and getting points. The Giants last week were the only team that got blown out and couldn't cover even like a 13-point teaser, even though they led 7-0 in the game and gave 2 pick sixes in the game. This is a team I want nothing about, nothing to do with. And this is the game you say, oh, I can't lay 8 points with Indy. Yeah, we've said that every single week with whatever amount of mediocre teams we've had. I can't lay 8 points with this team. This team is not deserving of laying 6.5 or 4.5 or more than a field goal. And what happens? It's a blowout. Why? Because the team on the other side is one of the worst teams in the league. Without a quarterback, without a coach, without preparation, without defensive players, without offensive line, this game's another blowout. Now, is it going to be 34-8 or 34-6 before the Giants turn it on and maybe score? Probably not. It's probably 27-6, and maybe the Giants get another point or another score like they did 2 weeks ago. I have this game at 27-13, still a 14.2 score game. So I'm not afraid to lay the 8. I'm not laying this as a contest pick. I like quite a few games this week. I mentioned a bunch of them already. So this is not a contest pick for me. I actually made the line 7, so 8. You're laying a little bit of a tax going against the Giants, but there's no way I'm taking the Giants with any amount of points. 21.5 points, not taking them. So no, seriously, 21, not enough. I want nothing to do with Drew Lock. I want nothing to do with this team. They can't cover. They get blown out every week, other than the game that you had against them when it was 14-3 against New Orleans, and all of a sudden they found a way to backdoor you on that. And get a 2-point conversion nonetheless to backdoor you. So
the tip at the line that just fell into your circumstances.
Yeah. And really, to me, if they're gonna run the ball 50 times, if that's the game script, to try to run the ball 35, 40 plus times, which they've shown now a week ago that's what they want to do. They don't want Richardson to throw the game away. As few passes as possible. Run. Giants can't stop them. Road, home, Giants fans are going to be booing them. There'll be a plane over MetLife with sell the team. So there's no home field advantage here. There's no points for home field advantage. And as long as Richardson's not giving the ball away in the red zone, and if he runs the ball himself, which he did last week, you're fine. So you can lay 8, you can lay 9.5, you can lay 13. You can't take the Giants in this game with any amount of points.
Say this, you brought up the Saints game. They also kept the Dallas game of Thanksgiving to 7. So and I would say Dallas and Indy are pretty comparable. They both have the same record. I think Indy's a little bit better, just a little bit better.
I have Indy a point better. I agree with that. But I think at the time, Cooper Rush has gotten better. Let's be fair. Cooper Rush now is not what he was 3 weeks ago when he first came into the game. And we'll talk about the Eagles later because that was his first game where he had like 45 yards passing. So it was a different team at that moment. And that's a divisional game. We're playing out the string. And I don't even remember who the Giants quarterback was in that game. I don't think it was. I think it was Thanksgiving, right? It was Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was Drew Lock.
It was Drew Lock on Thanksgiving. And if you remember, I think a lot of their points was him rushing. Drew Lock running the ball. Mm-hmm. And Dallas's defense is dreadful. So I don't want to make a comparison between a Thanksgiving divisional game and a Week 17 playing out the string when you're 2-13 and everyone's foot's out the door.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. I would say this about Cooper Rush. He has played better, but then again, he's played against some bad pass defenses recently. So I don't know how misleading that is. We'll get to that game in a little bit. G-Chuck asking if the Giants win, do they still retain the number 1 draft pick? They do not. If they win and the other 3 and 12 team, but if all the 3 and 12 teams lose,
well, 2 of them play each other. So Jacksonville and Tennessee are both.
Okay, that's true. Okay, so except for that. If all that happens, if all of them lose except for that one, the Giants will fall from number 1 to number 5. So they want to keep tanking, then they're going to need to lose here because their strength of schedule is so good. Merry Christmas, Walt. Jay Garcia, Merry Christmas to you too. Thoughts on who should get NFL Coach of the Year? I think Kevin O'Connell. Everyone gave Minnesota up for dead really J.J. McCarthy. People didn't trust McCarthy, but when he went out, and it was Sam Darnold. Like the Vikings were picked to finish last in the division. I picked them to finish last. A lot of people did, and yet they're 13-2. Like Kevin O'Connell's just done such a great job. I think he's Coach of the Year personally. You have any opinion on this?
On McConnell?
Kevin O'Connell. Who should win Coach of the Year?
McConnell.
Yeah,
I would bet it right now. I just don't have a platform to bet it.
Okay.
If somebody wants to lend me a platform, I want McConnell. I don't care what the odds are.
You okay with that?
No, I don't. And McConnell, there's no – listen, I would wait another week. If they get the 1 seed, I mean, you can bet whatever you want. if they don't get the 1 seed, if they end up at the 5 seed, I still think he's the coach of the year by a landslide. But I can see an argument made that Campbell's ahead, that Campbell could get it, because that defense and what he's done with that team, losing so many players, and of course getting the 1 seed, may be a narrative that everybody wants to trump and just give it to Campbell. But I think McConnell's the clear-cut front runner for coach of the year.
Yeah, I can't find these odds anywhere. I've been looking.
I've looked in so many different places, and it's literally if you can bet it somewhere, it's worth the flight.
Yeah, I've looked on FanDuel, Caesars, BetMGM. I'm not seeing anything here. So, 1 to 5 with a loss, crazy.
I'm already banned on Caesars, and DraftKings limits me to $46.15. So there's nothing I can do with those. I would get on a plane to Vegas now to bet McConnell coach of the year, or I'd wait a week, but he's done such a good job with that garbage team. I was so wrong about Minnesota. I had Minnesota under 5.5 wins, 6 wins this year.
Mm-hmm.
One of the worst bets and falls I've ever made on futures, and I've been betting futures for years. Every single year, I go to Vegas for a week in August, and I spend a lot of time building a bank account with futures, and that was a terrible bet. I laid minus 350 on no playoffs for a lot. So that's one of my only real losers this year.
Matthias calling us idiots. Well, I don't know. I mean, if you weren't a fan of Matthias, I don't think you would have been high on the Vikings either. But
I was very much down as soon as McCarthy got hurt, and I wasn't a McCarthy fan anyway.
Yeah.
And listen, first of all, it's good to admit when you're wrong, because I've been betting Minnesota for weeks. So I've made money on Minnesota recently, or for the last 2 months. But regular off season, you tell me it's Sam Darnold with a bunch of no-name defensive players. They brought in a bunch of guys. Flores and McConnell have done the most amazing coaching job of the season by a mile.
Yeah, absolutely. Play Dobbins if healthy, or Spears. Dobbins if he's healthy, because Spears still has Pollard there. I know Spears has scored some touchdowns recently, but touchdowns are so fluky, you can't count on that. So I would go Dobbins. So exactly. So all right, let's get to the next bad game on this 1 o'clock slate. And obviously there are going to be terrible games here, nothing but terrible games, because they took all the good games out and put them on the other days. Thanks Goodell for this bad Sunday slate. So we got our next one here. Raiders at the Saints. The Raiders are now favored by 1. The Saints were favored on the advanced line by 2.5. So this has moved 3.5 points. Just based on what happened this past week. Obviously, the Saints losing 34-0 to the Packers on Monday Night Football, and then the Raiders beating the Jaguars. So I don't know if that warrants 3.5 points of line movement. I know that 0 is a dead number, obviously, but still, really, and you're not talking any key numbers, but still, it's still pretty drastic, I think. So I do like the value. It's not like great value, but I do like the little bit of value we're getting. But I do like the spot here for the Saints. The Saints are coming off that embarrassing loss, the only team to be shut out this year. So they're going to be playing harder. They're going to maybe get back Marcus Valdes-Scantling. He was close to playing, so I think he's going to play. There's a chance Chris Olave plays. He was limited all last week, so he might return. And I'm not even counting with Chris Olave playing, but Kamara might be back as discussed. So there's a chance that the Saints might actually have some real players in this game, unlike the Monday night game where they had Jordan Mims catching passes or running plays. They had Kevin Austin, Ante Pettis. Who are these bums? They might actually have real players playing in this game. And then you have the Raiders, a bad team coming off a win, which is just a fade spot because bad teams can't sustain success, especially the Raiders, by the way. The Raiders have this awful track record of covering after wins since 2009. And I hate trends, but since 2009, they are 37-56 against the spread after a win. So they just haven't been able to sustain any sort of success after wins. So I like the Saints here. Not in love with it. Would not bet more than a couple units on it, but it's not like we have much else here in the 1 o'clock slate. So who do you like in this game?
I'll give you my pick in 10 seconds. Spot play Saints, $0. That's it. I got nothing else. You said it all. A team that gets shut out, they're now at home. Maybe they care. The Raiders off a win, happy, although they just blew their shot at the number one pick. So the Raider fans are really upset right now. I don't know if the number one pick really makes that much of a difference, but spot play Saints. My power rating makes the game pick 'em. I won't. I wouldn't take either team. I don't want to look at this game. Nothing. No pick. No money. Nothing.
Well, you know what it means is that they're going to have to trade up for. If they want a quarterback, they're going to want to trade up.
Right. They'll have to trade up, and that sucks for them. But that's what I tell you before. I mean, they're not going to rest players. Teams are going to play. But one team now is excited that they won. They're traveling. One team was embarrassed in prime time. And generally, you see that flip. Mm-hmm. So I would pick the Saints, and I wouldn't bet it. Because I said last week about the Saints that when they don't have a quarterback, the defense tends not to show up as much. And we saw that last night, the first couple of drives. Like Green Bay just walked down the field. Now, Green Bay's good, but they walked down the field. There was no resistance whatsoever. So I'd pick the Saints. I don't give it any more thought than that. I don't bet it, and I go on to the next.
Yeah, Rattler shake things up. He can slither his way out of that shutout loss. All right, Titans at the Jaguars. So the Jaguars are favored by 1. Kind of weird that the Jaguars are favored, especially considering that the Titans were -3.5 at home not too long ago against this team. I do think the Titans are better than the Jaguars. At least they have some good defensive pieces whereas the Jaguars only have Brian Thomas and that's it, like on both sides of the ball. I guess they have a couple good defensive players, but really they have nothing here on this roster, and they're both terrible quarterbacks. At least like the Titans don't have a lame duck coach, whereas the Jaguars do. And so the Titans were embarrassed last week. There's another team that was really embarrassed by their loss. They made it close at the end, 38-30, but it was 38-7. So I do think they'll rebound, especially, and I do think the embarrassing part was for the defense, whereas like the run defense is actually usually pretty good, and it wasn't good this past week. Jonathan Taylor just ran all over them. I think their defense will show up for this game, especially given that they lost to the Jaguars earlier. So I like them to bounce back. And the Jaguars they're just awful. I think they're definitely worse than the Titans. So I like Tennessee getting a point here. Again, not a big bet, but unit or two is fine. So who do you like here?
I don't like anybody here. Same thing as the last game. I was looking at Tennessee off a blowout loss, but they fought, right? They're down by 30 points. They fought. They made the game interesting. Ridley makes the game interesting. Mason Rudolph for 3 more interceptions. So what are we really betting on? You're betting on Mason Rudolph. They also gave up 335 yards rushing, which is pretty crazy. So I would expect them to play better, given that they were just embarrassed. They were when you give up 300 yards rushing, you got to go into the film room and watch that. As a professional athlete, that's pretty demoralizing right there. But Tennessee's now a league worst. They were a league worst last week. They're still a league worst, 2-13 against the spread. They already lost to this team a couple weeks ago. Now the game's in Jacksonville. Both of these teams are trying. Both of these teams are bad, but both of them at least are trying. I mean, you see the Jaguars week in, week out are trying. They could have beaten the Jets. They led against the Jets. I thought they were going to win last week. Of course, they didn't, but they're definitely both trying. Jacksonville at home. I don't know who to pick. Do I want Mason Rudolph? Do I want Mac Jones? I'll change my mind 10 times on this game. Somebody's going to win this game 19-16. I don't know who it's going to be. So I have really no confidence in giving you any sort of rationale for either side. So for me, flip a coin.
Maybe it'll be 6-4, like that legendary.
It was 10-6 last time. It was 6-3, like the entire game. And then all of a sudden, why was it 6-3? Because Mac Jones threw 2 picks in the end zone. Mm-hmm. But I'm not putting money on Mason Rudolph or Mac Jones to win a game. And I don't want teasers in this game. Oh, well, if the line's 1.5, give me a 7.5. No thanks. You don't have to bet it. I wouldn't tease this game with any points. I don't want to look at this game. If you're in a pool and you have to pick every game, I mean, my lean is towards the home team. But, is Tennessee better? I don't know that Tennessee's better. I don't know who's better. Honestly, I make these two teams completely equal. I have them number 28 and 29 in the league. They're both better than the Saints and Browns, given the quarterback situation. If you told me it was Carr and Jameis, and these are the 2 worst teams in the league besides for the Giants.
Okay, I do have some distance between them in my parent games. I have the Jaguars 31. I have the Titans 27.
Okay.
I do like Tennessee's defense, despite what happened last week.
So what
I
the
do.
defense that you give 335 yards rushing?
Yeah. I no, I do like them. I like some. I like Jeffrey Simmons. I like Tavondre Sweat. I like some of the players they have um, on their defense. I just think they had a terrible game. I think they'll bounce back.
That could be that, and that would be the reason to pick Tennessee's because they got embarrassed and they'll bounce back.
Yeah. And in the first game against Jacksonville, as you said, they lost 10-6. Will Levis got injured in that game right before halftime, here shoulder, and so it looked like Tennessee was going to win that game, and then they didn't score at all in the second half because Levis was just Levis is terrible anyway, but he's hurt. So I do like Tennessee a little bit, not a lot. Sonner says decent turnout here at the time of Christmas Eve. Losers. Actually, yeah, we're having this not bad. We have 490 viewers right now, which is pretty cool. Glad you guys joined us tonight. We're probably the only people live streaming right now, which is nice. All right, let's get to and it is after midnight, so Merry Christmas to everyone. Jets at the Bills. This line is Bills minus 9.5. It was 10 earlier today. It was weird. I saw like a 10, then moved to 10.5, and then it dropped down to 9.5. So I didn't know if there's like any injury news there or something, or or maybe this is just sharp movement or something. But I guess maybe we'll find out, or maybe we won't find out. But I do like I do like the Jets in this game. This is their Super Bowl. Like they've had such a disappointing year. They couldn't even match last year's win total with Zach Wilson. It's 7 wins. That's how bad they've been this year, or that's how disappointing they've been. I can't. I was thinking about I can't think of a more disappointing team in across any season than I've been watching football. Like maybe the dream team Eagles that Vince Young penned them as, maybe that too. But like a team that was expected to win the Super Bowl by some, like they have 4 wins. It's crazy. But they've been so poorly coached ever since they fired Saleh. They've had some special teams issues. Like the special teams cost them 3 wins this year. Like they could be better, but like this is all they have to play for is beating the Bills. And then conversely, the Bills may not have anything to play for because if the Chiefs win, like forget the Texans Ravens game. Like as Bagley pointed out before, like Texans win, then they can't even move out of the 2 seed. But even if the Chiefs win and the Ravens win, they can't get the number 1 seed. And so I like at that point, it's like, did they like how much do they care here? Like they were a no-show last week. They still won. They won their big games. I don't know how much this means to them because they already beat the Jets, and this line is high. I feel like even in the worst case scenario, the Jets will be alive for backdoor cover. Aaron Rodgers has been playing so much better, and the Bills have cluster injuries. They had cluster injuries at safety last week. That's why I didn't bet the Bills. It's one of 2 reasons I didn't bet the Bills. The other being, I thought, lack of motivation. But their top 2 safeties were out. They're missing one of their corners. They're missing their best linebacker. If this game doesn't mean much, like, do they rush those guys back? Like, I feel like they're just going to miss again. Maybe they rest some of their injured players as well, other injured players as well. And I can't imagine Josh Allen running very much in this game either, unless like it's comeback mode in the 4th quarter. So I do like the Jets here, provided the Chiefs win. If the Chiefs lose, then they'll be excited to maybe get their first seed, the number 1 seed. So I'll reevaluate then. But at the moment, I like the Jets. So what do you think about this game?
Well, you're also getting a lot of line value because, like I said before, Cornegay and Circa both put out 11, and the current line's is still 9.5. Just want to quickly take a look.
Yeah,
Buffalo is still 9.5, so they're making some sort of a statement. So there's some added line value from a contest perspective when it's 9.5 and the contest is playing it at 11. To me, I mean, I agree with everything you said. Jets are off another poor loss, right? I promoted the Rams last week. It was my number 1 pick on the board for the coaching. Ulbrich was awful again. The Jets actually had 0 punts in the game. Now, they only had 7 possessions because the possessions were kind of long. The Jets had a 99-yard drive, I think, at one point. A lot of short passes. The Rams had a lot of rushing yards. So the clock was moving. Only 7 possessions, but the Jets punted 0 times and couldn't reach 10 points. For my Jet friends, that's such a Jetsy thing to do, right? 0 punts, 9 points. I mean, that just almost doesn't make any sense. So another poor loss for the Jets. They lost by 10, so they did lose by margin, but the game was a lot closer than 10. They had the early turnover on downs. If you remember early in the game, I think they were up by 3 at the time. No, I think they were up by 6. They were up 6-0. They had missed the extra point, and for some reason they went for a 4th and 1 on their own 25-yard line, 30-yard line. So that just didn't make any sense at all. There's a turnover on downs there. Rodgers took a sack and fumbled in his own territory, which led to another score. Now the Jets also, Olufashinu is out, so he got hurt last week. That's a problem for the Jets. Now Buffalo, I didn't want to bring this up when we talked Cincinnati before. Buffalo, when they are behind, and this is something to pay attention to, Josh Allen feels the need to play hero ball. It's 2nd and 10, and he's just chucking the ball deep. 2nd and 10, throw the ball deep, incomplete. 3rd and 10, throw the ball deep, incomplete. And he just tries to hit that home run and get it back all in one shot. He's done this a number of times. He did this in the Bengals game in the playoffs when they got blown out. Earlier this year when they were getting blown out by Baltimore, they finally came back. They made it somewhat of a game. I think they were down by 7 or 10 points. At one point, they had the ball at midfield, and 3 times, deep pass incomplete, deep incomplete, deep pass incomplete, punt. So, why are you doing that, Josh Allen? If they find themselves behind in some of these games, he is not the best quarterback coming from behind. Now, when they have a lead, if they have a lead early, we've said before, Josh Allen's a bully. He will pile on. But I don't think they're going to have a lead like that. If we go back to the first game these two teams played, Rodgers had a really nice game, right? They actually benefited in that game. They had a Hail Mary before halftime. But in the second half, the Jets had a touchdown that was called back on a penalty. They then missed a 32-yard field goal. They missed another short field goal, a 43-yard field goal later in the fourth quarter with the game tied. It was back and forth. Buffalo got the field goal to go up 3, and then Rodgers threw the pick. If you remember, he called out Mike Williams for running the wrong route. So, of course, he threw a teammate under the bus, typical Rodgers fashion, blaming somebody else for his mistake. He throws the pick, and the game's over. But they played that game tight. So the coaching edge, again, is something to be very mindful of. Buffalo getting out to an early lead is something to watch out for. But if this game could stay close, I see no reason why the Jets can't make this one of those annoyingly close games. The Bills should have beaten Miami at home earlier in the year by a lot. It turned out it was only by 3 points in that game. Last week, I was very unimpressed. And here's the biggest kicker for me. If you listened after the game, Josh Allen said, well, we're playing New England and we don't really need the game. So we kind of didn't do everything. I'm paraphrasing. We didn't pull out all the tricks, right? I don't know if you heard that. He basically specifically said, we're not looking to show everything right now. And if that's going to be the case, then number one, they are going to rest players who are banged up. No reason to rush guys back who are not 100%. And number two, like Josh Allen said last week, we're not pulling out all the stops. We're waiting for the playoffs to do that. So knowing that, how could you lay points in this type of game? Like you said, this is the Super Bowl. The game could get tight. I wouldn't be shocked if the Jets won, but I certainly think this game should be relatively close. I made the game 27-20. Last week, we ended the Buffalo streak of 30-plus points. I don't think the Jets are putting up 24 to 27 points, so for them to cover, they probably need to hold Buffalo under 30. But if they do, I think this is like a one-score game. So am I looking to bet the Jets in a contest? Probably not, even with the line value. For simply, I don't want to bet on the coach. But I'm not laying Buffalo 11. That's for sure.
Yeah, I was considering the Jets for the contest. It really depends if the Chiefs win. If the Chiefs lose, then definitely not. I won't be on the Jets, but we'll see. So if Josh Allen sits the last 2 games, does that cost him MVP? I don't think so.
There are 2 people that could theoretically win the MVP. I was looking this morning, and we'll get some of these, maybe MVP odds later after we do all the games, but I don't know that it's a lock. Before last week's games, he went from minus 400 to minus 900. He's back to minus 400. Mm-hmm. So does that tell you that he's a lock to win? No. I mean, I think I saw Lamar was like plus 350, somewhere in that 300 range. If Lamar has great games and Allen doesn't do much the last 2 weeks, it absolutely could go back to Lamar. If you look at the stats, Lamar is having a better statistical season. Just Allen's had some ridiculous games, the receiving touchdown, the rushing touchdowns, and it's all narrative. Like everybody wants to give him the MVP, but I mean, Goff is putting up crazy numbers, and they may be a 1 seed, and Lamar, they can end up. I don't think they can pass Buffalo for the 2. Buffalo would have to lose a couple of games here.
Yeah,
assuming Buffalo gets a 2.
if Baltimore wins out and Buffalo loses out, Baltimore gets a 2 seed because they beat Buffalo.
Okay, right. It's not impossible that Lamar can win this MVP.
Yeah.
I don't think the value's there at 300 at 3-1, but if you're laying minus 400 or minus 900 last week, I mean, I feel bad for you because minus 900, what a terrible number that would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think it's a 90. Put it this way, it's not 90% that he's won.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it could change. I do think he should be the favorite, but
I agree he should be the favorite, but I don't think he's 90% like slam dunk.
No, I don't think so either. Well, do you want to save that discussion for after? Because
we can look at the odds later.
On Josh Allen.
Yeah, we can look at the odds later for some of these.
Okay, I don't think it'll be Sam Darnold. Let's see. And then last question. Please tell me the sharps are not on the Jets. Well, there's sharp movement on Buffalo and then the Jets. So
I can tell you, when it hits 10, it's gone back.
Mm-hmm.
So when it hits 10, there's action on the Jets because that line's not holding at 10. Every time it's hit 10, it's moved.
Interesting.
And it's pretty much 9.5 everywhere except for South Point. And South Point doesn't allow any professional bettors. So all the guys that I know in Vegas, they all hire people to go bet for them. There's not. Shouldn't say that out loud. No, South Point's the only place in Vegas that has a 10 because they literally don't take sharp money. And it's not worth at this point in the week. It's too early for real money to bet. That's how you know where the sharps are. Go look at like a Pinnacle. You'll see 9.5 pretty much across the board. So when you get to 10, it's sharp money back. 9.5. No one's betting. No one's betting the Jets at 9.5. I promise you that. The sharp money is betting the Jets at 10, nothing less.
I don't understand these sports books like banning sharp bettors. Like, is it like they can't get someone else to place their bets?
Well, that's the stupid thing because if you tell me I can't bet on DraftKings, and then I have a following, if I'm a real person if I have a real platform on ESPN or something like that where I'm out there and I can get thousands of people to go, promote a wager, it's like, why would you ban that one person from playing a game when they can easily go ask 100 people to go bet for them, or just be annoying and just promote it to thousands of people on whatever platform they have. But it's really the European model, the William Hills of the world that kind of started this. In the US, they started banning players, and now you get limited. Like I said, middle of the season started to take a bet on DraftKings and said no, it was flagged, and I can only bet $46.15. And I assure you that I'm not making millions of dollars betting sports. Now we win, and we're constant with what we do, and a lot of it is live, and it's certainly getting better lines, but it's not like it's millions of dollars. So why are they limiting my bets to $46.15 on DraftKings is beyond me. It's just utterly ridiculous. But that's what it is. Caesars kicked me out for different reasons. They didn't like the fact that I was betting both sides of NBA or college basketball games, and that was my own greed, where I should have used different books or different platforms. But that's basketball. You bet the runs. Team goes on a run, bet the other team. They come back. You bet team B, and you go on to the next game. And Caesars didn't quite like that in the NCAA tournament. So I got a nice email on the Monday after the second weekend that my account was being shut down. Oh well.
I'm
then I opened up a new account in someone else's name, but I don't do that on Caesars anymore.
I'm severely limited on PointsBet. I can't make more than a $5 wager there. So
5, good for you.
Yeah,
that's a waste of time to even log in.
I know. I just withdrew all my money. It's like so stupid. I guess I can get a new login, but I don't know. It's not even that good of a sportsbook anyway. All right. Next game we have Panthers at the Buccaneers. This line is Buccaneers -8. We recently saw these teams go to overtime a few weeks ago. But I do think this game is going to be different here. The Buccaneers are coming off a loss, national TV. I think they bounce back. Obviously, this game means a lot to them. And then you have the Panthers on the flip side. They're coming off a win against the Cardinals, upset victory in overtime. And so, bad team coming off a win. You expect them to struggle to sustain that. And And so I think there will be a reversal in this game. I liked when you have the better team with the better motivational angle. Now this line is 8. That's a lot, but I do think the Buccaneers will get there. I'm not excited to bet the -8, so this is not like a top play, but I will be betting the Buccaneers in some sort of facet. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Bucks.
Okay.
Carolina being coming off the overtime win really kind of seals it for me. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I like the Bucks in this game. Carolina last week, they're actually very good. I mean, they rushed 36 times, 243 yards rushing, 6.8 per carry, 3 rushing touchdowns. But they also gave up 200 rushing yards, 206, and over 7 yards per rush to Arizona. So that kind of speaks to their rush defense, which is number 32 in the league in general. Tampa Bay, conversely, is number 3 running the football. So, that's a huge matchup edge. But a team that plays overtime, especially it was a longer overtime period, and they got the win. So that's a team that's in a really, really bad spot. Tampa Bay off the pathetic loss. I mean, they dropped passes. They really shut down the Dallas run. I think Dallas had like 30 yards or 31 yards rushing in the game. It's like less than 2 yards per carry, although they did give the token touchdown to Zeke at one point. But Cooper Rush was really good in the first half. They kind of shut him down more in the second half. Baker was reckless in the pocket. I expect him to be better. He kind of like walked into a bunch of sacks. And like I said, the drops were just miserable. I think it was Sterling Shepard on the first drive and maybe the second drive as well. 2 massive, massive drops in that game. Cade Otton didn't play. I'd like to see if Cade Otton comes back. Evans was in and out of the lineup with some injuries, so they need him to be healthy in that game. But it kind of like a wake-up call. Team coming off the loss last week on prime time, and the game that they played a couple of weeks ago in the overtime game where they probably should have lost if not for the Chuba Hubbard fumble in overtime. That's like, hey, we can't take this team for granted now. We're behind Atlanta. We need to win this game. Now, Atlanta plays the night game, so Tampa doesn't know what's going to happen in that game. They must prepare. They have to go in. They have to assume that they're going to have to win both games and see where the chips fall. I expect them to come out here and win this game by margin. Now, I don't want to lay it from a contest perspective because if they do have that 14-point lead, 13, 14 point lead, the back door is certainly open. Carolina has shown that they're going to fight. They're certainly going to try. But I expect Tampa to kind of put their foot on the gas, put up 30, put up 27, 30 points. And I don't think Carolina can hang because I don't think Carolina is going to run the ball in this game like they did last week. And I think Tampa will. So that to me is the handicap spot, the running game. And I'd like to see Cade Otton back because I think he makes a huge difference, especially for Baker, who likes to throw middle of the field. And Baker needs to be a little bit more careful. I mean, in the Carolina game, he was bad until the last drive when he needed to score. He was really bad. And last week, he's stepping into pressure. He's walking into sacks. So don't really know what he's doing. Maybe that's just his nature. But I expect Tampa Bay to have a much, much better performance here.
Yeah, I also want to see Mike Evans in the injury report as well. He was in and out of the game at the end, which was frustrating because we bet his over receiving yards and we only needed 10 for a while. He just didn't get there. Like every time Baker threw, I'm like, come on, 10 yards. So he just wasn't on the field. He just kept leaving the game, coming back, leaving the game. So that's an injury to watch as well. I assume he's going to play, but if he's DNP all week, then I'm a little bit worried. So yeah, I mean that was like the genesis of that Christian Watson tweet because like we lost on that prop because Evans got hurt, and then we lost on the Watson prop because he got hurt. And then I was like, of course he gets hurt. And then Mr. Tim Watson doesn't understand context or nuance. All right, Randy asking if you like Tampa -8, show Tampa in a 7-point teaser, be a great bet, or a 6-point teaser. So yeah, I mean, if you're doing a teaser, a 6-point teaser, I think Tampa is definitely one of the candidates you're looking at.
Well, Tampa and Indy would be your two.
Those are the two most obvious ones. If you want to be daring, maybe the Saints, but I
wouldn't want any part of those games, like I said before. But yeah, that's a good point. The Colts and the Bucks, 2 1:00 games. That's your 6-point teaser for this week.
Yeah. And I usually don't like to have them at the same time because you can't middle the second game, but I really don't see any other possibilities there. Okay, so question, do you think we should start taking consideration that players playing a primetime games might be distracted because they're worried that their homes might be robbed?
Yeah, absolutely. No.
Yeah, I don't say about that, but I mean, get out of big cities. That's all I'm saying.
That's funny. Good
Yeah.
question.
Yes. All right. All right. Last of the early games. Is this might be the best one, or Bills Jets, I guess. So Cowboys at the Eagles. Signs Eagles -9.5. We don't know if Jalen Hurts is going to play. He gave a thumbs up, which I wrote was like a dead giveaway that he had concussion because as my dad always points out, like my dad hates Jalen Hurts. It's because I'm like, why do you hate Jalen Hurts? He's like, never smiles. No, is always upset. I was like, he just wants to see him happy, and then like, of course, he gives a thumbs up, and yeah, he's concussed. I talked about how the Buccaneers were the better team with motivation. This is the same thing here. Eagles coming off a loss. I expect them to bounce back. Dallas coming off a national TV win. Bad team with trouble sustaining success. Like the bad team off 2 wins in a row. I do like the defense a lot, but I don't trust Cooper Rush. We talked about Rush briefly. He has gotten better in the past 3 games, but the past defenses he's gone against in those 3 games were all pitiful. Tampa, really bad against the pass. Carolina, terrible against the pass. Bengals, terrible against the pass. 4 games, actually. Giants, bad defense. The last good defense he's played was week 12 against the Redskins. And yeah, that was a 34-26 game, but that was the 2 special teams touchdowns. It was a 10-6 game in the fourth quarter. It was not Cooper Rush did not have a good game there. He didn't have a terrible game, but he didn't have a good game. So this is the first time he's going to be tested since then. And the Eagles are the best defense he's played against. He's already played against them once. He got blown out. Mm-hmm. I think it might happen again. Now, obviously, Jalen Hurts has to play. We'll see if he returns. If he doesn't play, it might actually be Tanner McKee. And I actually like Tanner McKee more than Kenny Pickett. That's just more anti-Pickett than anything. I think McKee could actually be a decent number 2 quarterback in the NFL. So if this line drops accordingly, I don't know what it will be. Maybe, I don't know. I don't even want to guess. But like with McKee at like -4.5 or something, I think I would like the Eagles still. At -9.5 with Jalen Hurts, this slam dunk, I think, because the advanced spread was like 11.5. I made this line 13. I think it's way too short. So not only do we have the motivation, we have the better team, and we also have line value. So I love the Eagles this week. Who do you like here?
Yeah, I don't love him, but I'm with you on the Eagles. Dallas off the upset win in primetime. So, of course, naturally, they're overrated right now. Mm-hmm. Now, Rush had a really, really good first half. Second half, he had some terrible throws in that second half, including what probably should have been a pick. I mentioned some of the offensive drops by the Bucs. They also had, if you remember, I think it was Levante David who just the ball hit him between the numbers. That would have been a pick deep in Dallas territory late in the game. Dallas had zero run game. Yeah, I wrote this down here. 20 carries, 31 yards, 1.6 yards per carry. They're number 30 against the rush. They just gave up 134 yards rushing on 23 carries to Tampa, and Philly is a better rushing attack than Tampa is. Saquon's now about 250 or so yards. I don't know the exact number behind Dickerson's record, so I think they're going to feed him, whether it's Hurts or not. I think they feed him the ball, and Dallas just doesn't have an answer against the run. Now, Philly, you mentioned the first time they won easily. That was the 34-6 game. I think now the line is what it is. They're kind of middling that number. If Hurts plays, this line's probably 10.5, 11. Mm-hmm. If Hurts does not play, the line probably drops to like a 7.5. It's definitely not going to drop to 4.5. That much I can assure you. They usually kind of middle. So if the advanced line was 10.5, 11, if they're going slightly under 10 right now, that's their way of saying, well, it's going to be 10 or 10.5. If Hurts is announced in, it's probably going to drop to 7, 7.5. You're not getting under 7.5 now. I don't know anything about Tanner McKee. Is that who you said it was, the third string quarterback? Yeah. So I can't speak to that if he's potentially the quarterback. But if Pickett plays, he wasn't terrible. He wasn't great. But really, they kind of lost because Devontae Smith dropped the pass. And once again, they threw the ball with a chance to run out the clock instead of running the ball. And another drop like they had against the Falcons earlier in the season gave the Redskins another chance to come down the field and win. So, credit Washington for doing that. But the Eagles defense stopped them the first time around, got the pick the first time around. They kind of blew the game. That should have been a wider margin. And obviously, the last time they played Dallas, they held Rush to 45 yards passing. I just don't see Cooper Rush having an ability now to go on the road and put up a real fight, especially off of a win with Philly off of a loss. Until I know about Hurts for sure, I don't want to lay the points. But I think this game's like a 30-13 type of game, and I think it's going to be a lot of Saquon, and he needs about 250 yards. I think they're going to try to get the majority of that now, so that they don't have to go for it all in week 18. And knowing Sirianni, he'll go for it, even if they're locked into like a 2 spot. He's going to try to go for that rushing record.
Yeah, we saw it a few years ago when Devontae Smith was a rookie. He needed some number of yards to be the all-time rookie receiving leader in franchise history, and so they played Devontae Smith for like a quarter in week 8. I think it was week 17 back then. And as soon as he got the record, I think it was like the end of the first quarter, then he pulled him. So we've seen him do that before. So you're right. I think he'll get the majority here. Although last week, when Barkley ran for that touchdown, he was already 100 yards in, he was already over 100 yards by the time or before the first quarter was over. I tweeted out, which is in this correct stat, like he was on pace for like 469 or 463 rushing yards in that game. So it's a shame that he couldn't keep it going, because that would have been like an all-time. It's great.
Yeah, they didn't give him the ball enough. I thought they were a little bit too pass happy in the second half. I don't know why. They kind of did this the week before against Pittsburgh, where they were kind of trying to prove a point that they have a passing game. Like, they don't really want to take what works. And like, similarly in the Buffalo game, Josh Allen's chucking the ball deep. Meanwhile, if you watched, every time James Cook gets the ball, it's like 8 yards, 9 yards, 14 yards. It's like, just give the running back the football. It's demoralizing as a defense. If you just can't stop the run, just big boy football. Line up, smash mouth, run the football. And the Eagles can do that in this game at will. So even if it's Pickett, I see no reason why it wouldn't be a heavy game plan. Feed Saquon, and then Philly defense to really step up. They were embarrassed last week. They gave up the lead. They gave up the last drive, even after the pick. And I think they shut down Dallas. And again, if it's Hurts, if the line is 10, 10 and a half, I'm still on the Eagles. But this is not a contest play. There's too many other games with spreads that I like where I don't have to risk 10 and a half point numbers.
Okay, I think this will be a contest play for me.
And I was on this in Dallas. What week was that? Do we remember the exact week? I think this was a Monday Night Football game. Am I correct?
No, it was a 4 o'clock game. It was a 4
o'clock game.
Yeah.
What week? Do you have off the top of your head what week it was?
Was it week 11? No, because it was week 10? Let's say it's week 10.
Week 10.
Let me see if I'm right.
You're right. It was week 10. It was in Dallas. The line was 7, and this was a contest pick. And 34-6.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. It was a 4 o'clock game.
Yep. All right. Let's go to the late games. Speaking of 4 o'clock games, we have 2 of them. Dolphins at the Browns. This line is Dolphins minus 6.5. So I like the Dolphins here. We know the Browns are tanking, just like the Giants. They announced that they were benching Jameis Winston for Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and the players responded accordingly. They lost 24-6, and it could have been a lot worse. Well, in fairness, like the Browns could have scored it in the beginning, so they could have had more points. But Dorian Thompson-Robinson had a couple of touchdowns or interceptions that were dropped. There was like one play where he threw a pass, and it was touched by like 5 Bengal players, and it was a drop. It reminded me of like you had like a bunch of like animals in a cage, and like someone throws a meat at them, and like the meat just bounces around, like the players or the animals just try to get the meat. That's what it looked like, and like no one got it. It's funny. But then again, Joe Burrow took a 20-yard strip sack loss, a 20-yard loss, and then got strip sacked at the 1-yard line, which was pretty tilting at the time. So yeah, I mean that game could have been uglier. And we know how the Dolphins operate. When they play good teams, they lose. When they play bad teams, they win. We know what the Browns are, and we know the Browns aren't really motivated. Now the question is, will the Dolphins be motivated? If the Broncos and Chargers both win, they will be eliminated from the playoffs before kickoff begins. So I can't advocate betting this game.
Somebody was eliminated right before kickoff last week and played really
the Niners.
The Niners. The Niners didn't really play hard. I thought somebody else was eliminated before a game.
Yeah. Well, look, yes, they could play hard for sure, but we don't know that. Like, they could quit. Every team's different. But I do like Miami here. If one of the Broncos, the Chargers loses, then I definitely like the Dolphins. So what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I'm on the Dolphins in this game. I mean, Cleveland's off the loss. DTR had 4.6 yards per attempt and 2 picks. Yes, they should have scored early. There was a fumble at the goal line. 4.3 yards per play overall against Cincinnati defense is pretty sad. I mean, that's really all you need to know about Cleveland. Their defense is kind of quit. The quarterback has no capability. They can't consistently move the ball. They can't get their first downs, and they can't score. Now, Miami, the win last week was closer than the final score. I mean, that game was actually relatively close. Tua once again, nothing downfield. Passes over 10 yards, 4 for 11, 85 yards. But when he throws the ball behind the line of scrimmage, 9 for 9, for 0 to 9 yards, he's 9 for 10. Obviously, the Dolphins benefited from my friend Kyle Shanahan punting on 4th and 1 from the 39-yard line, kicking a field goal, 4th and goal from the 3. Oh my God, I can't believe he did that again. And then, of course, late in the game, they're punting when 6 minutes to go and they're down by 5, or sorry, at the time down by 2. He's punting on 4th and 3. So that game was actually a lot closer. And of course, Achane had busted a long run late to make the game look a little bit further away. So Miami is exactly what we know they are. They're an average football team. They're a total zero, and they beat up on teams that are bad. So this is one of those games. And again, you're going to a cold weather city, even though it's not supposed to be cold. I think it's going to be in like the 50s or 60s. Pay attention across the board this week. A lot of rain in the forecast, or the possibility of rain in the forecast. So, but I don't think that really will affect their quick, short passing game. I fully expect Miami to put up 24, 27 points, and Cleveland can't score. So I highlighted Miami this week at 6.5. I don't think motivation comes into play. Even if they find out before the game that they're eliminated, I still think that they've prepared and will come out and play. And maybe that takes the pressure off them. Maybe the motivation is, hey, we can beat a team in a cold weather city, even though it's not cold. So, but again, this is the same reason we were on Cincinnati last week. You got to fade DTR. You got to fade some of these quarterbacks, Spencer Rattler, DTR, against a competent team, even an average team. I don't care what the line is. I'm taking Miami. I'm going against these bad teams. And by the way, Jameis still has a shoulder injury. You might see Bailey Zappi in this game. So I don't know if that's better or worse than DTR, but I don't think Cleveland puts up more than 10 points. So if you give me 20, 23, 24 points, Miami, I'm covering that game easily.
Yeah, again, if the Dolphins have something to play for, I'd be surprised if this. If they, I wouldn't be surprised if they just dismantle the Browns. So
you saw last week they want to score late. Couldn't you see them trying to run up the score here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what they do against bad teams.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. The other 4:00 game, we have the Packers at the Vikings. The line is Vikings -1. So it shouldn't surprise anyone that I like the Packers here. I've been on the Packers for most of the season. I've had them Group A for a long time. Well, I guess ever since I started this thing. And I've had the Vikings in Group B. I think the Vikings, without Darisaw, have not really been tested. All of their wins, and like granted, they have won every single game ever since they lost to the Rams when Darisaw got hurt. But all their wins, except for one, was against Group C or worse. So they really haven't been tested yet. They were tested slightly last week against Seattle. Seattle was the best team they had played since then. Seattle in Group B. And yeah, Minnesota won, but they got outgained in yards and yards per play. And that game could have really gone the other way as well. So this is their toughest test yet without Darisaw. The Packers get after the quarterback. They don't blitz often. And so, yeah, I think that the Packers should be able to contain the Vikings offense. And then Jordan Love against Minnesota's defense, you have to look at the blitz because Minnesota blitzes at the highest rate in the NFL. Jordan Love is he's not bad against the blitz. He's not like great either. His stats drop a little bit, but it's not like substantial. His completion percentage drops like 3 points, so like it's not a worry. His YPA drops like 1.3 yards, but it's still like 7.4 YPA one blitz. So it's actually a pretty good number. So I don't think there's anything to worry about there. But yeah, I do like I like the Packers as the better team getting a point, which you don't see often. Whenever you have and I kind of looked this up, whenever and I guess like it's really subjective, I guess, which teams deserve to be in Group A or Group B. But whenever a Group A team has been an underdog this year, they are 5-2 against the spread. So small sample size, but it makes sense that they would cover. Now, not much of an underdog here, but they're not favored either, and I think they should be favored. I made this line Green Bay -2. And EPA says shout out to Matthias with the EPA. EPA says Green Bay should be -3.5. So who do you like in this game?
So Minnesota's off, solid win on the road. I know you were on the Seattle side. I was on the Minnesota side. We both pushed. Green Bay, of course, we mentioned the 34-0 shutout, blowout win. Can't really take anything away from that game. No, this is a great game. This is a very good game. I mean, I'm not going to read too much into the history. The first game, obviously, Love was coming back from injury. Minnesota led that game 28-0, so it's really not too much we can take away. Green Bay fought back. Minnesota went to sleep with a lead. So there's really not too much we can read into that after all. Now, Darnold was pretty good in that game. I mean, obviously, before they took their foot off the gas, he was 20 for 28, 275 yards, 3 touchdowns to 1 pick. This week, I mean, I'm on the fence. I'm leaning towards Minnesota. I agree with you that Green Bay is the better team. I think slightly. I don't see how this line could be Green Bay -3 because I do give Minnesota somewhat of a home field advantage of at least maybe 2 points, 1.5 to 2 points. So if you tell me that Green Bay is -2.5 or 3, that means they're kind of significantly better on a neutral field. And I think on a neutral field, maybe then it's Green Bay -2.5. I make it less. I make it -1.5 on a neutral. So I think Minnesota is rightfully the 1-point favorite here. And I think they're really playing for something. They're playing for that 1 seed. They know they need to win. Green Bay kind of playing for seeding. Like I said, I do think Green Bay is the better team, but I think Minnesota right now with the home crowd, big game in Minnesota. I like Minnesota in this spot, but like I said, I don't have a strong conviction. You seem to have more of an angle than I do, so I wouldn't go along with what I'm saying. This is the game where I would potentially look to tease the dog. But like I said, I do kind of lean more towards Minnesota, so I don't really want to be on Green Bay. But if I'm getting 7.5 points, then I would probably lean towards 7.5 points because I think this is going to be a 27-24 last possession wins. I really like this Minnesota defense, and I think they could get pressure. They could confuse Love. Remember, this is that Flores defense against the Shanahan tree. So it's Shanahan, it's Slowick, and now LaFleur. We have these similar concepts where it's a lot of short, quick slant passing attack, and Minnesota drops those linebackers. You don't really know where the blitz is coming from. They kind of crowd the line with 6 or 7 guys, and 2 or 3 will drop into coverage, and that could confuse Love. And it did in the first game, although he was injured, but he did get confused. He threw a pick, I think, from his own end zone that led to a short field. And we saw Minnesota already dominate the Niners this year, and they dominated Houston this year. So that coaching matchup, to me, means something. We'll see if it does in this game. Love has been very well protected generally against the blitz, but I think Minnesota coming from different angles could be a factor. So I lean Minnesota, but not a contest pick for me. And I just think this is a great game. I'm actually happy they switched this with the Eagles game to put this in its own kind of window at 4 o'clock. Although I don't like having 6 and 2. I think that doesn't make any sense at all. But this is a great game. This is an exciting game. I'm excited for this game. And I'd like to see Minnesota win selfishly just because I'd like to see Minnesota-Detroit have a real meaningful game in Week 18. Otherwise, all playoff seeding could pretty much be wrapped up this weekend, and that's just no fun. So I'm rooting for Minnesota in this game, but I don't have a strong feeling.
His angle is hatred, nothing back up. So Matthias thinks I hate the Vikings for some reason. Like no reason. I've only been to Minnesota once. I have an issue with the Mall of America, but outside of that, I have no hatred for Minnesota. So, outside of voting, but whatever. Packers has no motivation, according to Walt Football Logic. The seed is set in stone. It's not. If the Packers win out, the Vikings lose out, the Packers will have the 5 seed, which is way.
I don't think there's motivation on the Packers with seeding. I think the motivation is the divisional game. I don't see why either team wouldn't want to go in and win the game.
Yeah, but the seed's not set in stone. Packers can move up to 5. They get to play the NFC South.
I don't think the players are having meetings this week about, hey, we can win this game potentially and get the 5 seed. I think they want to win the game because they want to win the game. I don't think seeding makes a difference to them right now. I think they want to win because it's a divisional rival and they want to play well.
I agree with that. I think maybe next week if seeding is a thing, then maybe they'll play for it. But again, the seeding's not in stone. That's just my only point. So really, I they could move up to 5, which would be nice. But yeah, I agree with what you said. Every seed isn't set, so your reasoning for other games sounds stupid now. I guess disregard everything I said. Just fade every pick. Look, Matthias, I appreciate your enthusiasm with your team. I just don't think your team is as good as the record says it is. I think the Packers are better, but who knows? I could be wrong. I've been wrong before.
If Minnesota gets the 1 seed, they have a real shot at making the Super Bowl as a 1 seed.
You think so?
That's
I feel like
a very well coached team. That team is. I can't believe I'm saying Sam Darnold has a chance to make the Super Bowl. But if they win this game and they can beat the Lions, that team as a 1 seed with that defense is dangerous. Now, if they go on the road, I mean, I'm not going to be on Sam Darnold on the road in the playoffs, but they have a shot. That's why I love McConnell as the coach of the year. They're so well coached with, I think, inferior talent, inferior talent. You know what? Aaron Jones playing great. Jefferson's the best receiver in the league. Addison's playing great. The defense is playing great. Maybe they're not a lack of talent. Maybe they have a ton of talent, and it's a good coach taking talent. And Sam Darnold learned how to play football this year. So that's a dangerous team. They're a good team. Yeah. I wouldn't discount them this week. I don't think they're better than the Packers. But I would lean towards Minnesota in this game.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they'll find a way to screw up somehow, like they always do. The Vikings fans will have to be tortured. It just feels like that's how it has to go. Buffalo has no reason to play. I said that. I think if the Chiefs win, they don't really have a reason to play. And then Cincinnati, no reason. I mean, Cincinnati has to make the playoffs. I don't know what he's talking about. Let's see. Buffalo, Cincinnati, reason. Yeah. I mean, if the Chiefs lose, they have reason to play. So anyway, Vikings really dangerous now with Hawkinson. Hawkinson was a disappointment. I actually parlayed all the player prop bets I had last week, so throughout Sunday, not the Monday ones. And I hit every single one in the 1 o'clock window. And I was like, I bet it was like $50 to win 15,000 or something. It was something crazy. And of course, the 4 o'clock window, I'm like, please let me get this right and just be able to hedge with Evans on Sunday night. Evans didn't win anyway, but none of the ones in the 4 o'clock window hit. So it was not even close, unfortunately. All right. So anyway, let's get to the Sunday night game. We have Falcons at the Redskins. Redskins are favored by 4. Now, I wanted to bring up the Falcons earlier. I found this fascinating. Now, this is a small sample size, but ever since their bye week, which was week 12, their defensive EPA ranking is number 1. They have the top defense in the NFL in the past 4 weeks, according to EPA. Which the Falcons. I was like, wait, have they played anyone? They have. They played the Vikings and they played the Chargers. Now they also played the Giants, and it was the other crap team they played. They played someone else. They played. Let's see.
They played the Giants, the Raiders, the Vikings, Chargers, Denver.
Giants, Raiders. Yeah.
What week did you start? When did you start this week?
The bye week 12. So week 13 onward, they have been the best defense.
Who did they play in week 13? This is Atlanta, week 13.
They played the Chargers and the Vikings, but then the Raiders and the Giants.
Exactly. And that's where resume comes into play. It's hard. Right. It's going to be really hard, especially EPA is so dictated by turnovers with 2 pick sixes last week. I mean, if you throw out last week's game and you throw out the game, who started for the Raiders in that game? It was not O'Connell. It was Ritter, right? If you throw out those last 2 games, your numbers probably don't say that.
Yeah, of course. I'm not saying they're the best defense in the NFL, but they have played 2 good offenses. One great offense in Minnesota, and then one fairly good offense in the Chargers. So it's not like they played all crap teams.
By the way, they gave up 42 points in Minnesota.
But that was a lot of Kirk Cousins turnovers and stuff like that. It was 21-21 in the fourth quarter, and then this does not account for garbage time too. So that I don't think
those long touchdown passes though was those were pretty bad. Those guys were wide open. You had Jefferson and Addison were just wide open.
Yeah.
I don't know that this EPA argument can be made with giving up 265 yards and 5 touchdowns to Addison and Jefferson.
Yeah, that's what the metrics say. I don't know. I don't quite understand why. I will say this: their pass rush has gotten so much better. I don't know what they've done since the bye, but they've gotten after the quarterbacks like a lot better because they were like second worst pressure rate in the NFL. And now they're kind of up there. Um, so they have gotten better. And now that they don't have Cousins under center, they have a quarterback who's not going to turn the ball over. Penix threw one interception. That was Kyle Pitts just juggling the ball and just having the ball like float to the other player's hands. So like Penix already looks better than Cousins. That's a low bar, but still, he does cross that bar. And then the Redskins here, you have to worry about motivation as well, because if the Buccaneers lose to the Panthers, I don't think it's going to happen. But if that does happen, they will clinch playoff berth, and then they won't have much to play for. So that's something to keep in mind. So don't place your bets until you see that happen, unless you're super confident the Buccaneers will win. But so I don't really know what to make this game. So like the Redskins are coming off a huge upset win. So I would like to fade them, but this line seems a little short despite Atlanta's improved defense or supposedly improved defense. I do like Bijan Robinson against the Redskins defense, though. It seems like a great matchup in this game. Washington really bad against the run. Robinson's great. So I think this game could be close, but it's not like one of my favorite games. So what do you think about this one?
I like Washington quite a bit. And Atlanta's off the easy win. They benefited from the 2 pick sixes. They're down 7-0. All of a sudden, there's a pick six. Here you go, 7-3 becomes 10-7. They got another pick six in the game. You know, I talked before about the Giants' poor rush defense. Atlanta only 3.3 yards per rush in the game. That's pretty bad. I know they crowded the line because they didn't really respect the downfield throwing. Now Penix was okay. He wasn't great, and this is his first road start. And now this is a little bit different of an environment. Sunday night football. Now I like Penix in college. I'm not sure he's ready to play NFL. He's certainly going to be better than what Cousins can give you right now, given that Cousins is probably hurt. Certainly doesn't have a fastball anymore, and obviously has been a statue the last couple of weeks. But that's not really saying much. That he's better than Cousins, great. Is he going to be able to now go on the road in prime time against a defense that's been improving, and win a game? Because this line is short. This line to me should have been closer to 5.5, 6. And what is it now? 4? I think it's 4. Yeah, yep. It's 4 in both contests right now. It's locked in at 4. Washington, what I would say about Washington, they're off a wild comeback win. And they didn't deserve the game. And they know they didn't deserve the game. Because if Hurts plays in that game, they're losing by double digits. But they did fight back. And even though they threw the pick and they got another opportunity, Devontae Smith dropped the pass, and now Daniels has the ball again. And to his credit, he was able to move the ball downfield. They converted. He ran the ball great. I think he had over 60 yards rushing in the game. I just don't see Atlanta. I know you talked about the EPA against bad teams. Washington's one of the best offenses. Now let's see Atlanta on the road in prime time stop a mobile quarterback like this who's playing the way he's playing. Now Washington turned the ball over 5 times and still put up 30 points and still came back and won the game. So that's pretty impressive. It is a tough spot, but like I said, and there's really no motivation for Washington as far as playing for seeding. But I don't believe that they're not going to try. I believe they're going to try very hard. I don't see why they wouldn't be motivated to try to win. They're now forced in prime time. They're certainly not going to rest anybody. So, and like I said, it's Penix's first start on the road. So against a Dan Quinn defense. So if there's one thing I know about Dan Quinn, I didn't love him with Dallas, but he's a defensive coach, and I like good coaches, good defensive coaches against rookie quarterbacks. It's hard to trust. And this line to me just feels a little short. I think Washington wins the game. I don't think they win going away, but 27-20 feels like a good score in this game, something in that ballpark. I don't trust Penix yet, so he's going to have to prove it to me before I take them against the team that I think is, not quite your Super Bowl contender yet, but playoff caliber team for sure, better team. And even though Atlanta, quote unquote, needs the game, I think this is the game they slip open and Tampa takes the division back.
Yeah, I can see that happening. I
highlighted this pick. This might, if I give away the Ravens, then it takes that game out. This becomes like a top 5 candidate.
Oh wow, okay. I don't feel like strongly at all about this game. So I mean, you're on the other side and you have more conviction than I do. This is 0 units for me.
I just don't like that they're coming off a win. That's my only hesitation in this game. Is they're coming off a divisional win that they kind of didn't deserve.
An upset win.
An upset win that they didn't deserve. Yeah. But we said this earlier in the season. The games that they came off some of those games that it's a bad spot, like the Hail Mary game.
Mm-hmm.
And what did they do in the next game? So after they beat Chicago, they turned around, they beat the Giants, and then against better teams, they kind of blew the game against Pittsburgh, lost by 1. Philly game, they didn't have much of a chance, lost that game by 8. Then they laid an egg against Dallas. I give them a lot of credit for fighting back and taking the opportunity that was given to them last week, but putting up 36 and turning the ball over 5 times in the game against Philly, that's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're asking a rookie quarterback against that defensive coach at night in a must-win game for Atlanta. I don't trust it. I don't think Penix is there to win games. I don't think he's going to lose games like Kirk Cousins did, but I don't think he's ready to go out on the road and win NFL games against Daniels, who's probably taken back that Rookie of the Year now with his performance last week.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Penix is the concern for me, but that is the concern. But I do think Bijan can really take over this game.
He hasn't taken over any game thus far, and he wasn't great last week. I think he's great in general, but he hasn't shown it. I don't think he doesn't break every run. It looks like he runs, his 8-yard runs are amazing, but he's not breaking the 50-yard runs.
Yeah, that's true. It's a great matchup, but you're right. Mike bringing up Mathiason's point: if the Chiefs win, Bills have bigger reason to play. It's a 2 seed. If Baltimore wins, and the difference here is the Bills won't need this game for the 2 seed. They could just get the win next week. Whereas the Packers,
remember I said before about the Bills. That's the one team because Josh Allen said it. I don't have to predict it because he said it. He actually said that, hey, we didn't show everything in this game. We didn't need to show everything in this game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the mentality going into the game. And he told us that was the mentality. He didn't have to say that. He's not making that up. Clearly, they decided in their game plan that they're not taking out all the stops to win this game or to win by margin. So if the quarterback is telling you that we're just going out there to win the game, we're not running all these trick plays and gadget plays and running up scores, that's like a loser mindset, a loser mentality of that. And that's probably why they were down 14-0. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's Josh Allen hero ball. It's like, what are you doing down 14-0? He's chucking the ball deep. James Cook's right here running the ball 8 yards a carry, 7 yards a carry. How about handing the football? Yeah. But if your quarterback is telling you that, hey, we don't need to win the game, maybe you should believe him.
Yeah.
Outside of that, everybody to me is playing, other than Arizona, who just got knocked out a week ago. That's the only team this week that I could tell you is, I don't know if the motivation's really there for the preparation.
Yeah, and the 2 teams that are tanking purposely, the Giants and the Browns. I don't think they're going to be playing hard. All right, we get to the Monday night game. The Lions at the 49ers. So this line is Detroit -3.5. So I want to predict if this was the 3 square that you were talking earlier. So I'll throw it to you before I'll just say this first. My one hesitation here, and maybe you'll be able to refute it, is that if the Vikings win, the Lions, this game doesn't mean anything to the Lions because they're the number 1 seed will be determined next week in that game against Minnesota. However, if the Vikings lose, the Lions can clinch the 1 seed here with a win. So to me, I was like, if the Vikings win, the Lions may rest their starters, or maybe not rest all the starters, maybe rest their injured players or like hobbled players in preparation of next week. So you take it away. I think this is am I right? This is your free square?
Maximum motivation Detroit.
Okay.
Maximum motivation Detroit. And that is simply because of the playoff revenge. They're going back to the spot where they led by 14, 17 points. I think it was 17 points at halftime because I was with my 2 boys sitting 7 rows behind the end zone with my 6-year-old crying that the Niners are getting blown out. And I said to my older son, I cannot believe we're getting blown out in this game. And ever the optimist, my 15-year-old said, we're going to win. I'm like, okay, sure. Yeah, we're going to win. No. Dan Campbell blew that game because he was overly aggressive. When the Niners cut a 17-point game to 14 right after halftime, and they had a chance, the Lions, to go back up by 3 scores, and he opted to go for it. That was the only chance the Niners had in that game, was because Campbell was overly aggressive, and it backfired on him because guys dropped passes. Detroit has maximum motivation to take revenge on that game. And I believe that this game has been circled on their calendar all year round. There's no way they're going to sit Goff and sit Gibbs and sit Amon-Ra St. Brown in this game because you know what? We have to beat Minnesota next week. That's the game that matters. There's no way that's going to happen. And that might be why the books have this line at 3 or 3.5. That is a gift. That is your Christmas, Hanukkah gift from Vegas to us bettors because you can bet this game now and then you can live bet this game as this game's going on because their foot's going to be on the gas. They're going to put up 30-plus points. And here's what's going to happen in this game. Okay, I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen. Dan Campbell's going to be aggressive because that's the way he is. And Kyle Shanahan's not going to be aggressive because that's the way he is. And when Shanahan comes down the field, he's going to kick a field goal like he did last week on 4th and goal from the 3. And he's going to punt with 6:45 left in the game, down by a score, and basically say, you know what, we're out of the playoffs anyway. Let's punt. It's 4th and 3. Don't worry, we'll get a stop. No problem. And within like 30 seconds, Miami has the ball right back where the Niners punted from. This game has nothing to do with matchup. It has everything to do with playoff revenge. It has everything to do with one coach being aggressive and one coach punting and kicking. He's a loser. He's a loser mentality. And forget loser mentality. The Niners have no players left. They just signed a backup tackle who might actually get some reps, who might actually get some plays off the Arizona practice squad. Trent Williams is out. Aaron Banks got hurt last week. He's out. The backup Taylor, Jalen Moore, he's out. They're missing players across key positions. Bosa, if he plays, is not healthy. Hufanga's banged up. He may not play. Dre Greenlaw is being shut down. He's not going to play in this game. Yeah, Kittle's going to play, and Kittle's playing well. Debo actually had a good game. He looks like an offensive lineman, but he had a good game last week. A couple of weeks ago, he did not. He dropped the pass that pretty much ended the season against the Rams. We don't know who's running the football for this team. Not that it really makes that much of a difference. But Purdy's also not playing great. He hasn't been sharp. He didn't play well last week. He didn't play well the week before in a poor weather game. I don't know what the weather is going to be like here. I mean, this is the one game where I didn't write down rain as a possibility, but I got revenge factor. I got aggressive versus loser coach. And there's no way that the max motivation is not there for Detroit. So if you see that throughout the game, that they're pushing the tempo and they're scoring and the line is set pre-game, that's how the live line operates. The live line doesn't change because the computer notices that one team is playing well and one team doesn't. The computer only knows that the game is a 4-point spread or a 3-point spread, and that's what the spread is going to be throughout the game. You're looking at 1.5, 2 for the second half. You're looking at the what's the total? I'll tell you what the total is for the team total. We're looking at 50, 51.5. So Vegas is telling you that the score of this game is like 27-23. So the Lions are basically projected to score 6.5, 7 points pretty much per quarter. So if the Lions are up at halftime, they're over under for the second half. It's going to be like 13.5 points over. Lions score a touchdown early in the first half. Bet it again because they're going to keep their foot on the gas. They're going to keep scoring. And you know who's not going to keep scoring? The team that's punting when they're behind with 6 minutes to go. So 3 is a gift, free square, bet of the year. Okay. I told you last week the Rams were a great bet. There's very few games throughout the season where the line is just grossly off. And then we say this after the fact, and my friends or people would say to me, well, why didn't you bet it? Well, I am betting it. I'm betting it heavy, and I'm betting it live throughout the game, whether they're ahead or behind. This is your gift. This is your holiday gift from Vegas. This line should be at least 6.5, 7. And someone says, well, you just talked about this game being a blowout. Why should the line be 7? Well, the line's not going to be 13.5. But that's what the score is going to be. The score is going to be a 2-score, 10 to 14-point game. And it's going to be one like Niners-Packers. The Niners are basically thrown in the towel. And they don't have the players or the horses or the coaching mentality to compete with a team that wants to step on their throat. So there you go. There you have it. Detroit -3 game of the year.
Okay. I assume this is in your contest card?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Unless you tell me that Goff's not playing, in which case that is a signal that, hey, we don't care about this game. We're going to rest everybody. Yeah. That would be absolutely shocking. And you can pull up, and this is why I mentioned this before and I wanted to wait. Goff 25-1 MVP is not crazy. It's not crazy. Now, there you go. Jared Goff, 25-1 MVP. If Goff goes bananas in this game, throws 4 or 5 touchdowns, and then they play Minnesota in the Dome, and he throws for another 4 or 5 touchdowns, I don't know how many touchdowns he has on the season, but if Allen doesn't look good and Lamar doesn't win the next 2 games, and Goff does, and they're the 1 seed, whereas Lamar and Allen are not the 1 seeds, I'm not telling you that Goff is going to win the MVP, but 25 to 1, 4% chance, it's got to be better than 4%.
Yeah. It's interesting. I already have a bet on Goff to win MVP. So, but yeah, I agree with that. So
They have to, for Goff to win the MVP, they have to win the next 2 games. He has to play great in the next 2 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Allen has to basically play what Allen did last week, and Lamar can't win the next 2 games.
Yeah.
Because if Lamar wins the next 2 games, I mean, even if they're just the 3 seed, Lamar's statistics are what they are. I mean, the rushing yards are there and everything, but Goff's playing great. Goff's had 1 game where he had 5 picks. By the way, they won that game that he had 5 picks.
Yeah.
But he's had some unbelievable games in big time shootouts. He's been great. He was great outdoors last week. This is an outdoor game again. So he would have to have 8 or 9 touchdown passes and about 600 yards in the next 2 weeks and lock up the 1 seed. And then he's got a real shot.
Yeah.
A lot better shot than 25 to 1.
Cinder's asking where's the prospect. Yeah, I'm going to be posting them a lot to do tonight. So we're going to sign off here. But yeah, thanks guys for watching. Really appreciate it. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description of the merch store. Evan, any final thoughts here before we sign off?
Slew and Dre just made an interesting comment because I love these. Receive opening kickoff, go down 7-0. What's the live spread on the Lions before they receive the ensuing kickoff? So the line opens 3.5. Let's say it's 3.5. You're probably looking at pick'em. Maybe Lions minus 1.5. It's not going to adjust that much right away. Probably goes from 3.5 to 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
Something in a ballpark.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
It's not like the Niners are all of a sudden going to be favored by 3.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with Kenny. So looking forward to save your fantasy questions by then. Evan, always great to do this with you. But yeah, we'll see you later. And Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Festivus, guys. All right, guys. I'll see you later, and have a good night.